In the beginning, there was only static. First came Lauren, the heart splicer, shipwright of emotion, who forged bonds stronger than steel between characters who had shared no more than a single meaningful glance. Desperate for someone to read with, she called upon a friend. Then there was Con, the phonetic herald, warden of syllables, who spoke the sacred pronunciations and struck down all blasphemous tongues of those who dared say wyvern instead of wyvern. With a single sweep, she catalogued every obscure vowel shift and soft G in the universe. And though it was grand, they dreamt grander, and deemed to bring their own mates into the fold. Enter Jon, keeper of recaps and smut scribe of the emoji. He emerged trailing plot summaries and laughing with unrepentant mischief, turning 7-hour reads into 7-minute blurbs and composing romance from mere images. Then came Kyle, weaver of endings, oracle of spoilers, whose third eye blinked open every time a prophecy was foreshadowed in Chapter 3, speaking in riddles and theories and knowing the future only by guessing every possible thing and hoping something stuck. Together, these four gathered to shape their own reality with hot takes and cry counters, turning lore to laughter, prophecies to playlists, and thirst traps to theology. The mics were unmuted, and the podcast was spoke into being. Their followers multiplied, and the world may never know peace again.
That was amazing.
Amazing. Good job. One take, too.
Wow.
Good job.
Welcome to Between Pages and Friends, a book club podcast hosted by Con and Lauren, two besties who read a lot of books, and Jon and Kyle, their gamer-turned-reader husbands who've agreed to read with them. I'm Kyle.
I'm Con. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Jon. This is our very first episode covering When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. If this is your very first episode of Between Pages and Friends, hi, come on in, make yourself at home, grab a drink. You can learn a little more about the four of us and what to expect from our podcast in our last episode titled Moonfall Series Intro. But if you want to dive right in, I respect that. Here's a little recap on our setup.
This is a book club podcast. That means we record these episodes after reading each chapter section so you can read along and listen with no spoilers for future chapters or books. You do not have to finish the entire book before listening. Jon and Con are reading this book for the very first time, so Kyle and I will get to help lead the discussion and capture their real-time reactions and theories along the way. We'd love to hear yours in the comments too. Once we finish reading the book, we are so excited to have Sarah A. Parker joining us for a full episode to talk about it all.
But before we dive into the prologue, we do want to give a quick content warning. When the Moon Hatched is rated for audiences 18 and up, meaning it can get spicy, stabby, and very much not kid-friendly. We may be discussing themes and direct quotes from this book regarding violence, trauma, and sexual content. Please check the author's content warnings if you have specific sensitivities. As always, listen with care and maybe not out loud at work.
And if you've been here since the beginning, bless you. And if we've slowly wormed our way into your heart like a morally gray love interest, it might be time to see if you're ready for that next step. For just $5 a month on Patreon, you can join our Book Bestie tier and get access to our cozy Discord, monthly book chats, live events, and more bookish goodies. For $10 a month, you'll be part of our Found Family tier, early access to ad-free episodes, merch discounts, voting rights, and possibly our eternal love. No promises. It's a great way to support the show and make a ton of unhinged reader friends.
And last but not least, the single greatest gift you can give us, besides snacks, of course, is a review on Apple Podcasts or Audible. It's free, painless, gives us just enough validation to keep going. Here's a recent 5-star review on Apple Podcasts from our new bestie, Falcons123456789, titled, Start to Finish Laughs. And I read, I have been listening to the podcast since it first launched. I had just finished the Throne of Glass series and loved reliving it with them. Their insights and humor keep me coming back each week. I find myself laughing out loud. I feel like I have 4 book besties. Heart emoji. Thanks, Falcons123456789.
You do have 4 book besties.
Thanks to all 9 Falcons that wrote
Thanks, Falcons 1. Thanks,
Back into the
Falcons 2.
keyboard.
Thanks,
Falcons. And now, are you tired of mumbling through new fantasy names like a medieval Muppet? Wish someone smart, beautiful, knowledgeable, and fantasy-obsessed would just tell you how to say them? Well, you're in luck, because Con is here with your official pronunciation guide for When the Moon Hatched.
That was so nice of you. Thank you. Wow.
Wrote it
Can't
myself.
believe you just came up with that all on your own.
Yep.
So sweet.
Ad-lib.
Welcome to Con's Declassified Fantasy Pronunciation Guide. This is the part of the show where we highlight all the new names and places mentioned in this chapter section. I am referencing the audiobook narrated by Sarah Molo Christensen and Phaedra Al-Casey. And from time to time, I will also be asking Lauren to join me in referencing the written glossary and pronunciation guide in the book. She has instructed me not to look at the glossary, so I do not risk seeing spoilers. But if we have questions as we read, she'll look things up and give us some spoiler-free insight. So I'm actually going to summon her right now in our first category for places, because we have the fade, the burn, and the shade. And I'm going to have Lauren tell you a little bit about them.
Yes, so the fade is the middle third of the world. It's described as the girthy band of the globe. Here, the clouds are always colorful as it's forever cast in the light of a golden hour. There is a massive stone wall that circles the girthy part of the world like a belt, and most of the fade civilization have built homes within it. And so that's kind of where our story starts. The burn is the northern third of the world, and it's always sunny here, and so it's super hot. And the shade is the southern third of the world. No sunshine reaches this area, therefore it's forever cast in darkness.
Ooh, thank you. That's so fun. I was nervous about having to do this super long pronunciation guide by myself, so I appreciate you.
That's what I'm here for. I liked the word summoned, too. It felt fancy.
Yeah, it's nice. I do typically categorize the pronunciation guide into sections. So to finish out places, there are some other places mentioned here that include the Hungry Hollow, Orig, the Lough, which is an ocean, Gondrog, Bogeth, Gore, the Ergor Plains, the Botanic Plains, the Undercity, the Ditch, Netherin, Arithia, Drelgad, the I already said the Botanic Plains, didn't I? No,
yes,
I spelled it wrong. It is
The
Botanic Plains, not
full of
botanic.
plants.
Beautiful and verdant.
That's funny.
I'm going to start from Gore. Okay. Cut. Gore, the Ergor Plains, the Undercity, the Ditch, Netherin, Arithia, Drelgad, the Botanic Plains, and Dom. In characters, we have Rave, our FMC. She was also known in this chapter section as Kaemori Daffodone at the Hungry Hollow. We meet Levy, the blonde pregnant fiddler Rave performs with. Lord Tarek Relican, the red-haired nasty-ass male that Rave kills. You go, girl. Sareem, the snake-like female Rave reports to in the rebel group. Fallon, Rave's friend that she lost a long time ago, R.I.P. Essie, Rave's other friend that she found as a child and promised to protect, R.I.P. again. Elowen Navan, this is our intriguing 9-year-old diary author. Hadion is Elowen's older brother. Ruse is the shop owner at the Curly Quill. Uno is the very good shop pet at the Curly Quill, and Uno is a miskin. Lauren, can you tell us what a miskin is?
Of course. According to the glossary, a miskin is a knee-high creature with white hair and complexion, buttony features, and sharp teeth. They have willowy bodies that fold up like a marsupial and long tufted tails. They can see into the future, though these visions are sporadic and subject to change. And these creatures are verbal.
What?
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Fancy.
Okay, back to our characters. We have Rek Zaros is the bounty hunter hired by the king. The king's name is Kadok Vagor, and he's married to Queen Dothea. Yescorn is the Undercity librarian with a pet spangle. Ni is the pet parchment lark that Rave keeps for a long time with the words "I need you" written on it from an unknown sender. Princess Kizari, this is Khan's niece and the current guardian of the Ether Stone. Did I not put Khan in here?
Nope.
Oops. Let me just do this right here. So sorry about that. Khan is our MMC, not to be confused with my name. This is spelled Kaan. Princess Kizari is Khan's niece and the current guardian of the Ether Stone. Vea, connection currently unknown, but Vea went with Khan to find Kizari the last time she ran away. And then we have some dragons. So there are 3 different types of dragons. The saber scythes are from Gondrog. These are big and bulky dragons with black, bronze, and ruddy scales. They have ferocious aptitudes that cannot be matched. Then we have molten maws from the Fade, or specifically from Boggeth. They have sharp beaks and claws, vibrant colored feathers, and each one has unique colors and patterns. And then finally, we have moon plumes from Netherin. These are luminous dragons with leathery skin, long silky tails, and eyes of glitter and ink. All right, let's go into world building. First up, we have Moonfall. So when the dragons died, they float out into the ether and calcify into moons, then fall from the sky back to the ground in a devastating collision. As a result, the gods broke apart and trapped Kalis, which is one of the gods, into the ether stone, and the threads of his silver cloak that tore free moved into orbit around the planet, allowing its residents to track the passage of time. This gives us the Aurora cycle, which is the word for a full day. Their daytime is, they use the word day, D-A-E, to describe their daytime, and then slumber to describe their nighttime, since there is no clear like day and night, since their planet doesn't rotate. Do you want to jump in here with these?
Yeah, sure. So this was the most confusing thing for me and Kyle when we read the book the first time. So I just wanted to make sure everyone understood. The world does not turn. And so I think that's a big one, starting there. But we learn about what an aurora cycle is. A complete aurora cycle is the amount of time it takes for the aurora ribbons, which are the like cloak that tore free from Kalis, the aurora ribbons to orbit the entire world once. An aurora cycle is equivalent to a 24-hour day. So every time they talk about an aurora cycle, they just mean one day.
Yeah. And then we also get into phases. So a phase is sort of like a year, and Lauren's got some more info on that as well.
Yeah, a phase is 1,000 aurora cycles. So 1,000 days equals a phase. The aurora ribbons grow marginally thicker over the course of the phase and then thin out on the 1,000th cycle. So this ebbing rhythm tracks the phase from start to finish. An eon will be referenced, and that is 100 phases, which is also like 100,000 aurora cycles. And to explain maybe ages of people, when they say they are one phase of life, that means 1,000 aurora cycles. So like they're 1 year old. 24 phases of life is 24,000 aurora cycles. So you might have to do some big math, but hopefully that helps out.
Thank you. So with that, our timeline currently, we are in 5,165 phases after stone. I'm assuming with our current information that stone refers to the Etherstone incident when the last moon fell.
Yes. The tracking of time and phases will be either after stone or before stone, and it might be referenced as like certain number of days, AS being after stone, or certain number of phases, BS for before stone.
Perfect. Okay, and then we hear the term null, which signifies those incapable of hearing the elemental songs of the gods. And a null clip is a physical marker on the ears of nulls to signify their lack of connection to the gods.
Yep, and those that have an elemental connection will have an elemental bead. These are worn to show individual can hear any of the elemental songs. They're also different depending on where a person's from. Like some will wear it as like earrings, some will wear it as necklaces or beads in their hair. It just kind of depends. Red is for fire or ignos, blue for rain, water, clear for cloud, air, and brown for boulder. So they'll reference everyone's beads every once in a while.
All right, let's wrap up world building. We have Dragon Bloodstone. This is the currency in this realm. The Fjorduath. This is the rebel group Rave is part of, meaning from the ashes. There are Elding Blades. These are members of the Fjorduath who get sent on murder missions. And then the Elding is the leader of the Fjorduath, and he rules the underground safe haven. We get one mention of a term, Dagamork. This is one so bonded with their dragon that they can harness its strength and wield its fire, though this is said to be more mythical than fact, which sure, for sure. We'll talk about that later. And then Hayes Perch. This is the name of the little adolescent moon plume with the malformed wing that Rave looks at in this chapter section. Waifs are creepy soul nibblers. Runies are those who specialize in runes. And then I'm not including every single tiny world building element here for the sake of time because there are a million, but here are a few other capitalized or notable mentions. There are scurpy tables, elding birds, silver sow moths, spangle poop. Kolk is like a cow. The trog is sort of like trash chutes. And then we get a mention of the tri-council and lots of mentions of parchment larks. And lastly, my favorite section, We have God's watch. In this realm, they are referred to as the creators. These are the gods of this book. So the first god is Kalis, god of ether. This is like space, like empty space. Kalis is now trapped inside the ether stone. The other 4 gods are Boulder, god of ground, Rain, goddess of water, Claude, goddess of air, and Ignos, god of fire, who was also apparently obsessed with Claude. Thank you for bearing with me through our very long pronunciation guide. We are so excited to get into this world. So here to introduce to you the background of our story, we have the royal reader of the recaps, champion of the chapters, presenter of the plot points, love of my life, Jorn.
Thanks, Corn. And we have a prologue full of things, all the things, really, so many things, great things. I don't even know how to talk through this. Guys, can you help me out here?
There are 5.
We have some dragons, 3 types of dragons actually. Saber side, molten mice, and they stay in their respective third of the world. Some folks would steal dragon eggs and use them to their advantage to win wars and all that. But then folks learn how to kill dragons and dragons the world died, they would sail upward.
Which spin around the globe.
Curl into a ball, calcify, making them
for the whole calcifying thing.
Well,
his
Kalis can apparently rip
in
them
the
from the
diadem
sky,
of the runes and all that. The feet off the guardian. There was peace until the moon came falling
diadem,
rain,
drops the mighty Fey warrior. Time. Falling moon.
Thanks, guys. Well, we start our story. That was literally incredible. Oh, my God. Well, we start our story with Kaemori, traveling bard. This is allegory, because she's actually Rave in disguise. She is on her way to do something. She's a stand-in for some kind of act, runs into a very large, gruff dude who she definitely skirts around. And we find out that she is here as part of a quote-unquote operation. She meets the counterpart to her disguise, the other musician named Levy. She also noticed the large, gruff dude return, odd since it seemed that he was leaving. And then they start singing The Ballad of the Fallen Moon. Some story about a saber scythe dying and becoming a moon, of a moon plume next to it giving it light. Moon plume gives its light over until it falls, giving new life to the saber scythe, who comes back down to hunt. Large gruff dude is watching intently, in addition to her target, Tarek Relican, and realizes she's snagged not 1, but 2 monsters this slumber. After hours of singing, she takes a little break, and Tarek greets her outside the restroom and tries to get her to come home with him. Large gruff dude shows up and cuts the tension a bit, but also allows her to slip by Tarek. She goes to leave, but Levy catches her to pay her commission and offer to walk Rave home. Rave ends up showing her this weird orb thing, which apparently means something, as Levy seems to immediately understand that Rave is there for Tarek. Levy gives Rave her contact information as Tarek saunters out to follow her. She leads Tarek to a portion of the Fade Wall, and to sum up, she's not actually a Null. She can hear Claude and seems quite adept, so she uses Claude to take the breath from Tarek, then bites her molar for a little contraption in her heel to spike his foot through, which I'm assuming is iron. I don't know if that's said or not there. Do we get that there? No, we don't know? I don't know. I'm assuming it's iron. So now he is fairly incapacitated and can't use his Ignos against her. Nice. He's apparently the leader of an undercity racket, fighting, child trafficking sort of thing. Real scumbag, this one. Well, she needs his handprint to open some cell doors of imprisoned children, so she takes one. Does a little torture, carving letters on his chest, all the while telling him about how his quote-unquote bound gave Rave all the info she needed to do this, and how his family is already on their way out of the Fade, and then she ends him. She throws him over the edge, and as she makes her way back down, sees a notice from the Crown about how the Fjord du Oth are the ones taking children, a little play against them to trick folk into seeing the truth. Then she runs into Large Gruff Dude, a bit softer in their meeting here as he asks for her real name and not the fake one she used. He knew. He's also seen the body of a Fey male splatted on the rocks below, which they mutually agree is not a man, but an animal, and she heads on her way. We find out that she is an Elding Blade and a Thathan for the Oth, stalking the shadows in the Thro and Thut, seeking her target in the silence. She finds her spot at the very top of the wall on one of the bow bridges, cross bridges, and watches her favorite Moonplume Moom. Hold on. Shit. I can get this. Moon plume. That's a lot harder than I thought.
I thought this was a bit you wrote in.
It's really not.
So here
Her
it is.
favorite moon plume, moon in the sky. She watches her favorite moon plume, moon. Oh, it's the M. You really got to iterate the M at the end of moon plume. All right. She reads the parchment lark from someone named Essie, asking her to get some supplies for her. During this, we learned that Rave saved Essie from the mines and has been caring for her ever since. Then we get a diary entry from Elowen Nivan, daughter of once king and queen. She's talking about her parents and their crowns and how her mom was like screaming, trying to get it off one time. Anyway, the next morning, Rave is up and into the drift to get the items for Essie, stops by the Curly Quill run by someone named Ruse, gets things ordered but is requested by Sareem, apparently her boss in the Fjord d'Ath. They clearly have a bitter relationship. Sareem a Rooney, I'm assuming. She has a vial around her neck, apparently filled with some people's blood, or maybe it's just Rave's. I'm not really sure. There are runes around it, and she can use it to, like, torture Rave. Some kind of blood bind that we learn. Samir tells Rave that she is to lay low because there's a bounter honey on... A what? A bounter honey?
Bounter honey.
Honey.
You also called her
Did I say Samir?
You have it typed as Samir right here, and I think you just read it that way.
Oh, autocorrect. Okay. There's a bounter honey. Hello. All right. There are runes around it, and she can use it to, like, torture Rave. And we find out that it's some kind of blood bind, something that has to do with magic. Sareem tells Rave that she is to lay low because there's a bounty hunter on the loose hunting the Fjord d'Ath, a guy named Wreck-It Ralph. Wreck Zaros. Rave wants to go after him, but Sareem says no. Then we get some history of their relationship and how Sareem, quote-unquote, saved Rave. And we get another diary entry from Elowen. Talks about her brother is making the journey to go steal a moon plume egg, but that she knows he's probably not coming back from the journey. Rave walks out of the quill to gasps and screams. A molten maw overhead flying toward the Colosseum for some kind of feeding time as other dragons join the fray. We also get a little insight here about the king, that he's a quote-unquote tribead with dual-beaded elemental bodyguards plus his dragon. So, not someone you can get close to easily as an Athathan of the Ath. She heads to her home and stops briefly to gaze at the adolescent moon plume up in the sky, her favorite. She goes down a ruined path to a hidden area and into her and Essie's house, apartment. Essie has made her some tasty food, and she also knows that Wreck is on the prowl and voices her concern, which makes Rave awkward because of the whole not wanting to admit closeness to someone, because everyone she does that with dies and whatever, classic trope, Finally, in her room, she gets cleaned up a little and takes out a parchment lark that she's had for 5 phases with the message, I need you. Apparently for someone else, but she's kept the parchment lark. Another diary entry from Elowen. She snuck into Hadion's sleigh to go with him to get her own moon plume egg. Kind of badass for a little 9-year-old, you know what I'm saying? Despite his warning to stay in the hut while he goes to do what he went there to do. And we get our first Con chapter. Ooh, and what's this? Oh, he is the king's brother as he meets with Kazari, the princess, his niece. After some banter, she tells him that she can hear him, quote unquote, and that once she started to listen and shape the language in her mind, she learned too much. And now she wants to find a way to set him free. And oh shit, she hears Kalis and is apparently in love with him. She clearly knows something, more than she's letting on, but Con can't get it out of her, and she ends up leaving him there alone. Rave awakes to Nee, the little parchment lark, fluttering about. She slept an entire day, basically. She hears a thump upstairs, quietly goes to investigate, finding Essie with a fatal stab wound and bleeding out. She went to the Undercity without Rave and was met with a hooded figure. Rave holds her until her last breath, holds her longer as she puts the quote-unquote clutter onto the icy lake of her mind and moves to arm herself to the teeth, vowing to find whoever did this and make them hurt. She grabs a quill, unfolds Nee, and writes a reply, "No, you don't." Then creases an activation line to return to sender. As Nee takes its leave out the window, Rave douses the area and Essie with some alcohol-type stuff or something. heads out the window, sets the place on fire. On the ledge, she notices a bag on the ground, Essie's, with the final ingredient for the diamond cap that she was making for her tooth, and the dagger that killed her, with writing on it, Undercity, RK. A summons from Rec, and as she's out on the ledge, she goes through some stuff here. Kyle might have some counseling notes on this later, possibly, I don't know. And we start the final chapter of this section following, quote-unquote, the other, which we quickly learn is somehow Rave and, like, not Rave. Following the scent of Wreck from the dagger in Essie's bag, she's very clearly in the advantage at night as this other, and starts going to town on some soldiers who have apparently set a trap for her. In what I can only describe as a scene straight out of a combination of like 300 Blade, Van Helsing, and maybe like Kill Bill, she slices and clothes her way through a bunch of dudes to a trapdoor, pinned in a small room / cage where she boulders some other dudes, but then gets some iron in the back and further caged by a fire plume, courtesy of Rec, our southern not-so-gentleman, taking one of his fingers right before he knocks her out. And wow, just wow. That's where we stop.
What a place to stop.
Well, thanks, John. Amazing as always. Let's dive on in.
All right, we're going to start with the map because that's the first thing you see when you open the book. And I just noticed that on the map, there's like these little tiny dots on there. And I assume those are the moons. I don't know what else it would be. And there's also like a smaller one close to what would be the wall that she lives on. And I know that she's like stares at the younger... the younger moon or the younger dragon that was up there and stuff. So I assume that's them. Honestly, I thought there would be more than what's on the map that I see. But that is just the one thing I noticed that was unique about this map.
Interesting.
Cool.
Fun facts.
Yeah, and is that like little slight wave in there supposed to be the
Aurora.
the ether ribbon? There's like a very subtle
The Aurora?
The Aurora
Like coming all the way down
ribbons or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
An Aurora
I think so.
Borealis.
It's kind of following the dots a little bit.
That is true in this moment. That would be my guess, but
Yeah.
because I mean, how else are you going to see it track throughout the day? It
Right,
would make sense
yeah.
that it's almost a solid line. Obviously, like they move a little bit,
Cool.
but
I like it.
Yeah.
Jordan.
Prologue. So, yeah, so I did forget about the glossary warning. I did read through some of the glossary. Whoops. But mostly skimmed it. And I don't know, not like, I wasn't like, oh my God, like I didn't want to know that. So, but I had a note when I came to this. I said, yes, the great flirt. Thought that was
Very important
funny.
moment in time.
Yeah, that made me chuckle a little bit.
Yeah.
The great flirt.
the only reason I said stay away from the glossary is because even what I like shared about each of the dragons or each of the like whatever, like I cut a lot of that out because you learn it as you go.
Yeah.
In the book, so it's not like it's gonna give away the main plot of the story or whatever, but it helps, to just go in blind and figure it out as you go.
Yeah. Speaking of figuring it out as we go, the gods and goddesses lore that we get right out the gate in this book, I was so hyped about this. I actually pulled up the book and I started reading it and I was like, oh no, I need to pay attention. I had to put it away and come back to it later. I took my sweet time going through this prologue. But I was also really immediately loving the writing. At the time, I was assuming the more poetic vibe of the prologue was more specifically for the prologue, but I love the way that she weaves it into really all of her writing and how descriptive it is, but it's also like really metaphorical and honestly like mastermind level brilliance. From what I'm piecing together right now, I'm very excited to keep going. Oh, and then there was a line that said, a various cacophony of folk who littered the land and snow and sand, some with hearing sharper than their ears. And I was like, yay, we have Fae, because I also didn't know that about this series. But then we also learned that there's like secret runes, which was really intriguing. And there's a line about the silver book, which is what they were referring to as the book with like runes in it. It said a different form of power in those runes nobody could read or pronounce, discovering that the strange markings could be wielded, could mend bones, charm blood, glamour objects. And this is just like such a fun addition to the magic system. I love reading about like runes, and I feel like different authors tend to approach them a little bit differently. So I'm excited to learn more about those.
That's supposed to be the book that Kalis wrote, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally forgot about that.
But then now they have like Roonies who specialize in them. So I
Yeah,
don't know
right.
if
And
that's
they
like
wear
more
special
common
outfits.
knowledge.
Yeah.
The Roonies have special outfits. Oh yeah, they do.
They were like
They have,
special
like robes.
Cream
all
color
white robes and
or
stuff.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, cream
Yeah.
color maybe.
I thought they were
Fancy.
purple, but I guess that would make more sense.
I think they're purple was Sareem's office. Everything was purple.
That's true. And nobody can have Sareem's color.
No, it's her color.
Okay, but what I was most excited about in the prologue, though, is that the dragons are the moons. And I was like, this is why it's called the Moonfall series. This was so cool. I loved this.
Yeah, I had no idea about this either on our first read, and it like blew my mind. But I was also really excited that the dragons are so different from each other, just because we read a lot of dragon books, and usually all the dragons are the same except for the color. So it was fun having these like have scales or leathery skin or even feathers, which is just wild. So that's super fun. And then it kind of talks a little bit in this section too about how the dragons turned into the moons. And so it says, but as castles grew taller than mountains and as kings and queens decorated their crowns with bigger, sparklier jewels, so too did folks learn how to shed dragon blood. For many moon plumes, molten maws, and saberth's eyes, their eternal lives were slashed. The creator did not expect their beloved beasts to sail skyward in the end, for many of them to plant themselves just beyond gravity's grip, curl into balls, and calcify, littering the sky with tombstones with moons. They certainly did not expect those moons to fall long after they found their lofty perch, for them to collide with the world in a clash of splintering doom that threatened to devastate everything that had come to be. And so I'm under the impression that these are really, really big explosions too, because like all the gods come together to literally save the world with it and stuff. So yeah, kind of crazy.
It's also
It's
kind
like
of funny.
It's such a unique world building thing.
Yeah.
It's I guess you saying it was the first time I realized it, but it's kind of funny to picture the people who like created the world and these beasts watching them die, and they'd be like, "Oh, it's floating." Like it says they didn't expect it. Like they're like, "What is going on?" And then it comes crashing back down, and they're like, "What is going on?" Like, but I will say, like, we've read books, obviously, and then I've asked the question, like, "Oh, I wonder how much of this like they plan out versus like, you know, they start writing and then, oh, I should do this later." I feel like this is one of the first books in a while that I've read where I was like, you've clearly been thinking about this for a while. And I almost wonder if she wrote it and then her editor was like, you need to have a glossary in here, because what the it's just, oh yeah, I'll put some definitions in there, because like, yeah, it's crazy world building and it's like very detailed.
Well, and the glossary has stuff that's not in the book at all.
Yeah.
Like the stuff about that
really?
little creature that's at the shop, the curly bill and stuff. And then like every single creature that's listed has a description, and it even says like if it's verbal or nonverbal, and like there's just a ton of extra random information that I probably could have gone along with your pronunciation guide and added 100 things. But you'll just have to go read it yourself when you're finished with the book.
I can't wait. The way that the other gods like ganged up on Kalis and like trapped him with his own runes is absolutely brutal. But then as cruel as it is, I also kind of love the idea of the guardians being chosen to wear the crown so the runes can draw from their power. Because I feel like this is such a cool way to write in a line of like exceptionally powerful fae, or like the line of kings, because sometimes it's like, oh, he's super powerful, but there's not really a reason. And I like that there's just kind of this, you know, built in, this is why they're this powerful and this is what they're doing, and they're blessed specifically by the gods. So all of that was terrible, but also really cool.
Yeah, like the first one was just a mighty fae warrior known for his strength and wisdom. And then I guess everyone else just made him king and his familiar line, because then it just got passed down his line. It says like skipping stones, which is kind of interesting. So it's really neat. I'm totally here for it.
Yeah. Well, and the way, I have a note about this later, but the way that it's worded in the prologue, I assumed that it would always be the king who carried the ether stone. But then later we find out that it's through some like queens and princesses as well, which is interesting. All right, so the last line of the prologue is, until one aurora rise for the first time in more than 5 million phases, ... Another moon fell. And my note, all caps, was, I am so immediately invested in this book, you guys. I love this.
I was talking to Lauren earlier, and I was kind of hurt when I first started reading this book on the recommendation of Fallon from our Discord. And I told her, I was like, I just started reading this book, and it's like insane in the prologue. And a few like chapters in, I'm still sort of like, head spinning. And then she was like, oh, stop reading that book because we might read it someday. And I was like, oh, okay.
She's not Fallon.
Yeah. Lauren told me to stop reading. I was like, all right. So I was like maybe 4 or 5 chapters in. Just with that much knowledge coming back into it, and finally
At least
got
you
to
got
read
to be a rereader.
I know. Well, it
Yeah.
took me 3 times now reading the prologue to be like, okay.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I really did. I took my sweet time going through the prologue. That was like the longest piece for me, I think, because I was trying to type notes as I went and do all my world building things, and there were like so many new names, and that was wild. So, but I feel like it helped a lot with understanding the first several chapters. So, speaking of which, we're jumping into chapter 1. This is Rave's POV, and it says this is 5,165 phases after Stone, so after the prologue. My first note was that Rave is Fae. That's super fun, because we knew from the prologue there are Fae, but I didn't know our FMC is Fae, so I was excited about that. And then this is more of a goofy note, but when we first meet the waif, it says, well, isn't your soul a plump, juicy thing? And I know the waif is really creepy, but I was like, wow, what a pickup line.
Turn around twirling her hair. What?
Neat. What?
On a more serious note, she tries to leave and it says, there are screaming spirits desperate to speak with you. How about a small suckle of your soul? Then you can hear everything they have to say. Gross. And I was like, oh, it seems like a spiritual realm is clearly connected to the living in some way. I thought that was kind of interesting. At least that's what I took from this.
On a unserious note, every time I read that, it very much read to me like, there are screaming spirits desperate to speak with you in your area. Call now.
Oh my God.
Man, I always get these dumb ads.
Yeah, like a late night, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
commercial
some like
ad.
ghoul holding up a phone. I'm ready.
Oh my gosh.
That's amazing. Well, and describing some of the other people here after she gets past this wave, it says that others were wearing finely tailored coats, feathered shapes barbered into shorn hairstyles, and elemental beads hanging from their lobes, a boastful token of their ability to hear the different elemental songs, which we kind of covered in the pronunciation/lore guide. Red for Ignos, blue for rain, brown for boulder, clear for cloud. And I just thought that was good to know. Also for like any When the Moon Hatched friendship bracelets. I know we're going to Enchanticon soon. You got to include the elementals that you can speak to.
We actually just got back from Enchanticon.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Great note.
I mean, it was great. It was so much
it was so fun. And we traded all these friendship bracelets.
And you already saw them, yeah.
So in Rave's POV, it says, when somebody tall, broad, and cloaked charges down from above, I pause, unable to see much of his face, bar his strong jaw brushed in a dark, well-shaped beard, his cloak's hood casting everything else in shadow. And I wrote, hello, good sir, are you by chance an MMC?
I love my MMC, tall, broad, and cloaked.
Yes. In shadow. But then when
Just
they
a bunch of
pass
shadows and a trench coat.
With a well-shaped beard. Good one.
Thank you. I'm glad we brought that back in episode 1.
Yes, me too.
When they pass by each other, it says, my breath catches, then shudders free as if unwilling to part with the dense, luscious scent that might just be one of the best smells I've ever inhaled. And my first note was, mates?
Mates? Someone said mates?
This also might be part of my thoughts and theories later, but that was my first note. And I was thinking of Lauren and the gif that Kyle made with the, what is it, from Finding
Mate?
Nemo, all the little birds that were like,
Mates?
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 So I was wondering here if this is a mind reading italics situation, only because of one specific line, but I'm mostly leaning toward inner thoughts. But there was one part where they haven't actually really spoken to each other yet, but Rave is thinking places to be, hands to sever. And then it says a dense grated sound crumbles out of him like it rustled loose. The air shifts. I shift with it. Like she thought this being posed as, somebody who was just there as a performer. And then the like air changed or whatever. And he like turned around. Like it was like a whole big moment. So that was one of them. But
Yeah,
John had a note about this too.
I had highlighted this too because I think we'd maybe seen it like once or twice before up to this point. So I was like, okay, what's with the italics? Is this like a God thing when they hear the elemental song or something? But then like I came back and added to this note after this happens a few more times. I'm like, okay, I think this is clearly just internal dialogue, very simply.
Yeah.
So
it does happen a lot of times when there's like no one else around and it is just like her talking to herself. The only note that I had, if it was mind reading italic situation, is that there was a part where he's standing right next to her still and she thinks move Rave. So if it is mind reading, then he does know her real name now. And then he ends up asking her for her name later and he's like, not that fake name that you gave that one guy. So that was really my only note in favor of that. But next, she sliced another glance at Tarek Relican and her teeth gritted. Cheers, everybody.
Our first cheers.
First jaw tick of the book.
Our first teeth grit.
First teeth grit. So we meet Levy, the little fiddler that she plays with. And Levy asks Rave if she knows the song Ballad of the Fallen Moon. And I got so excited when I read this because the sequel to this book is called The Ballad of Falling Dragons.
I know.
Yay.
I assume
They
it's
did
the
it.
song.
They said the title.
Question mark?
But the actual section where it describes the Ballad of the Falling Moon is like so beautiful and tragic. And I was like, I'm only on chapter 1. This book is going to make me cry. Like, I know it's going to make me cry. This was the first moment where I was like, crap.
Did you cry? Or you just knew it was
Not
going to
here.
get you there?
I just
Okay.
knew based on the writing and how deeply I was feeling all of the feelings that it was going to happen. She was going to make me cry. I didn't think it was going to happen in this first chapter section, but we'll talk about that later too. And then my last note for this chapter, I just had a note that Rave girl's got some serious baggage. And I'm also a little confused about some of this wording. I will bring this up again later as well. But she has this flashback here that says blotches of somebody else's blood frosted to the rags that clung to my skeletal body. I am currently assuming that this was about Fallon since we've gotten some other little like mentions of that as well, but I'm not 100% sure. And then this is also the space where it says, I plunge into the melody the same way I once plunged into life, but with the words I've since learned how to speak. Armored by the horrors I've encountered since, flaming horrors, mind-mincing horrors. So I'm like, at this point in time, we really don't have a lot of information other than like a little bit about Fallon, but we still know hardly anything about her. And I'm like already devastated learning about her background. I don't even know anything yet.
It's like insane
nervous.
how I guess it's just the writing, how quickly I've attached. And I feel like all of us have attached to Rave and all of the characters and have like these strong feelings in chapter 1. Like, it's just really well done. So shout out to Sarah.
So good.
The note that I had here was when she was singing and she just went off on the song. And then it said, her lids fluttered open. I became vaguely aware of every pair of eyes in the room that had turned watching us, wide with greed or wet with emotions that slipped down their painted cheeks. But it's the cloaked male that steals my attention, the top half of his face still hidden within the shadow cast by his hood. Despite it, his stare reaches through the space and embraces me in an ironclad grip I can't shake. And my note here was like, ooh, sing to him, girl. Get your man.
What a voice.
I know, she's amazing. And then as she's leaving like the stage, I guess when she's finished singing, she says, I came here to lure one monster and ended up snagging 2. And I guess it's also just with the writing that it's crazy that we get 2 very vague descriptions of these guys, and yet I have drastically different feelings about each of them. How it's like, I am like, sing to him, yes, and I'm like, this guy's the literal words for the 2 that she has
From like
in
2
chapter 1.
sentences.
Exactly. So well done.
I wrote that this line sounded like it came out of a Taylor Swift song.
I came here to lure one monster and ended up snagging 2. Oh, 100%.
It sounds like it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm here for it. That takes us to chapter 2, also POV Rave. It says, nothing like 7 hours of straight singing without breaks to make you feel like you've swallowed a metal scouring brush, then hacked it straight back up again. And I was like, ugh, I feel this so much with school starting up again and just being a music teacher, and I'm going to go to singing all day. It's, I get it. But also the fact that her shift was 7 hours.
Yeah.
Like all of chapter 1 was a long time.
That's a
And
really
that
long time.
Rave and Tarek sat there and listened to both of them. Or not Rave, Con and Tarek sat there listening.
Me and
or whatever.
Tarek.
Yes, amazing.
I'm really just here to announce at this point in time that with the light blue eyes, long inky hair, and curves for days, I officially have a crush on Rave. I got a big fat crush on Rave. First one of the book. Chapter 2. I love her.
That's valid.
My next note is when Tarek has Rave cornered outside of the bathrooms, and he says, with a voice like that, says he tacks on, stare sliding down my body like an oily brush, making my skin crawl. I'm sure your Mal's a effing delight. And I wrote, ooh, straight to jail. Straight to jail.
Right away.
And then somebody comes in from the outer door, says, we both look over his shoulder at the large cloaked male who watched me sing all slumber from the back of the room while exuding the stoicism of a stone statue. And I wrote, oh shit, things about to get crazy.
My reaction to this line was more about watched me sing all slumber, because it makes sense to me that they wouldn't have days and nights since the planet doesn't spin, but slumber just kept making me laugh for the first several chapters.
Lauren and I both never got over that either. Like on our first read, after we finished the book, the first thing that we met with each other and said, we were like, what's going on? Like, there's so much stuff. So we had to go through the glossary together and look up, explanations. Like, oh, okay, I get it. Reading through the second time now, I'm with it. And this note is a little old even now. I understand it fictionally, but maybe not scientifically, because I know now that the aurora does move. But before then, I was like, how are they getting this cycle at all? Because it's a golden hour consistently. But I don't have to go through my whole long nerdy note for it. Now I get it. The aurora is like a jump rope on the planet. Gotcha.
Great way to put it. For clarification for this next part, because this took me a second to figure out, Rave shows Levy a, quote, small glass orb, transparent, but for the incarnated depiction of a mythical elding bird hatching from a bulb of flame caught in the orb's depths. So John mentioned this real quick in the chapter recap, but I'm guessing this is like a phoenix, especially considering the name, because it's like the elding bird and their Fur de Ath means from the ashes. But I'm now assuming that this was just a discreet way to tell Levy she was with the rebellion without saying anything out loud. Does that make sense?
Elding.
I think that's what it is too.
Elding is also another word for firewood or fuel, that sort of thing.
Nice. Okay.
So yes, it also tracks.
Yeah, that tracks. All right, cool.
Yeah, that makes more sense. I was thinking that this is maybe something that they left on a body of their target or something, or at the time, if the thing in her molar helped activate it to kill him or dispose of the body or leave a calling card type thing. But that makes a little more sense.
Why you would think that there would be a more convenient way to tell people that you were with them other than carrying around a glass orb, because that just seems really seems really inconvenient,
Especially with her job. And
you know,
it's very hands-on.
I figured, yeah, but now I'm thinking that this is more of almost like a paperweight situation of
That's how I took it too.
But then it's why, if it's not useful, why are you just carrying around this random kind of odd,
yeah,
incriminating,
inconvenient
orb.
glass orb?
yeah.
Right, and well, even from I don't know, a company standpoint, well, what are we gonna leave on bodies? Well, we're gonna hire a glass blower technician to actually make. We're not gonna do just a stamp or a signature. Everybody's doing that. We want to stand out. This guy, somebody's having to intricately make these things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's true.
kind of
It
weird.
does say in the glossary that an elding bird is a mythical bird-like creature born from ashes and flames.
Oh, yeah.
So
Totally. Okay.
You're totally
Not
right.
unlike a phoenix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So almost like a Fur de Ath or something.
Exactly.
That'd be a great name for a secret rebellion.
And then right after Rave shows her the elding bird orb, Levy says, "Oh, Tarek, like confirming Rave's target. Rave nods and Levy looks down. It says, stare caught on her hands, now clasping the swell of her belly, a vision that does something strange to my heart. Makes me feel like it's going to burst, and not in a nice way. And I was like, oh, is Tarek the father? Oh.
That
because
hadn't
she has
occurred
like
to
a
me.
companion to walk her home, but that doesn't mean it's.
Oh, that's true.
It sounded, so that
Did it say it was her
sounded-
bound?
Yeah, I think it was her bound, but Tarek
did,
is
didn't it?
Tarek and could totally have forced himself
Yeah,
on her.
that's very true.
She did say it was her bound. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But
But that still could be.
yeah, I
he
just
is
thought
the
it was an
worst.
odd reaction when she was like, oh, it's for Tarek. Because I'm assuming when she shows the orb, somebody like Levy knows that whoever somebody like that is there for is probably
Yeah.
going to die. Like they're
Yeah.
there to kill them.
Yeah.
That seemed pretty obvious.
That's a great point, though. I had not read it like that.
Nice.
I don't know. We'll see.
And then as she's like finishing up this, about to leave to kind of lure Tark and everything, she says to herself, companionship is something I work hard to avoid and mostly succeed. The harder you care, the more fragile everything seems. It's easier to just not. And I was like, oof, girl is clearly going through a lot with the little snippets of whatever trauma she has, and then for her to just kind of be in that very beginning, like, I just don't care about anything, I don't know. Lots
I
of
didn't know you
character
were going
growth
to take
here.
it that way. I said, glad someone else said it.
That it's easier to not care. Yeah. I saw that.
I read that and I was like, yeah, same.
You're just at a really good spot at the beginning of some character development, Kyle.
This is the start of your character arc.
Dang, this is coming late.
You're in chapter 2.
I read it as, I guess, just more of like an introversion thing, not like
Yeah.
I can't do it sort of thing. I was like,
Maybe I guess reading it in chapter 2, but looking back at it after
Yeah.
her interactions with Essie and everything else, I feel like
Yeah.
it's
I get
more
you.
of an intentional, I don't care about anything, even though she clearly does.
Yeah. I will say there were a lot of things that I initially took to be more metaphorical when she's like writing about Rave's sort of inner mind and just how her thoughts work and the way she detaches from people. And for a second, I was like, is Sarah A. Parker an Enneagram 9? Because a lot of this is like really hitting close to home. but then reading back through some of it after finishing chapter 15, I'm like, maybe this isn't as metaphorical as I thought. So we'll get there too. But that takes us into chapter 3. And there's just like so many great highlights. I feel like there's so many good little writing snippets, like things that are just quotable or just really relatable. But I did want to include this one. This one is in Rave's POV and it says, survival's funny. Somewhere like a whisper, others like a scream. Mine's a scorched skeleton of flame-forged rage that keeps me upright, keeps me moving forward. And I was like, oh. Whoo, this is going to be good. Not that it's good that she feels that way, but just
Sure.
Oh, it makes for a badass FMC, though. I will say that.
And speaking of, when she coaxes Claude to siphon almost every wisp of air from Tarek's lungs, that was sick. It follows up with Tarek sucking a struggled gasp through the compacted organs.
Ugh.
So I'm just like picturing like literally the breath just being ripped out of his lungs to the point that they like shrink down and he's like, oh,
Oh my gosh. Diabolical.
cool. Yeah.
It is really cool.
Well, and it's like that Claude is the one enjoying that. Like,
Yeah.
yes, like Rave is obviously there and took off the ring and whatever, but like that's all Claude making those choices and
Yeah.
just being that way, which
Yeah.
is wild.
It's
Yeah,
his
it's-
air. You can't have it.
It is cool though, because there are obviously I'm always on God's watch in all the books that we read and stuff, but a lot of the time, even if there's God's involvement, you don't get this much personality. Like there's really a lot. I mean, there's so much written into even just these few lines where it's describing like the glee she feels about this revenge and whatever. So that was crazy. But the iron ring that keeps Claude's manic noise at bay though is really interesting to me. I was mind blown at this like seemingly direct interaction between Rave and this goddess here. And my note was like, do the gods just casually interact with people like this all the time? Like I was like really freaking out about it. And it sounds like it, I mean, they can. Like that's John and I were talking about this earlier and he was like, I mean, the gods have to be like omnipresent, right? If they can just be, I don't know if you would call it summoned with this language or if they can just utilize that power if they know the language. I'm still trying to figure that out, but is interesting.
I mean, because they have their song, and it sounds like
Yeah.
the song is all the time, because that's why even she wanted to put the ring
Right.
back on later so she could like go to sleep, basically.
Yeah.
And so it's like once you learn their song and their elemental music, then you can use that
Yeah.
for something. So it's like
It's crazy.
I guess just
Because
however
it was
familiar
the
you are.
song that made everything. So the same song could be used to control it, even if you're not them, I would assume.
Nice. Okay.
And on my first read, I thought it was just Rave who had like this connection, but like even later we hear that somebody just blew down the screams of the people getting eaten by dragons just so that, you know, everybody could be scared, and used Claude's magic for that. And, you know, you see it other places. So it
Yeah.
just seems like anyone who can hear that specific song just gets to use it if they figure it out. I guess.
Wild.
It is super wild. And then kind of what I was talking about earlier with like that Claude herself or himself. Is it a girl?
Herself. Yeah, she's a goddess.
Herself. Okay. That Claude herself is like into this evil doings with Tarek or whatever. And it says, the goddess of air works up a howling eddy that makes my veil flutter about. A lopsided grin stretches across my face. She wants to play. So do I. And I was like, ooh, it's going to happen.
Something I definitely need more information on, though, is we're in the middle of learning about Claude, and then it says the god of fire loves to feast, and I'd rather be skinned alive than have him gnaw on me again. And I was like, what does this mean? There's like no other information. This is dropped in chapter 3, and then there's like nothing else. But the metal cap on the molar thing was also sick. I really loved that. And how it was like rigged to was it like a blade in her boot or something? And she was able to like clamp down on it twice. Like that was so cool.
I'm assuming, so it was like a bolt, I think, that like came out of her heel. I'm assuming it was
Yeah.
iron. I don't think it said if it was specifically, but that would make sense for me if they're like affected by iron, and that was just another way for her to
Oh, yeah.
incapacitate
Yeah,
him,
'cause Denise-
knowing they're fae or whatever. So
Because she said like, how does it feel to be nullified or something?
yeah,
Right? Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Since he treated all the Knoll children so badly.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of that, he is treating those children horribly. And so she says, imagine my disappointment when I discover I required your handprint to open their cells. So it's almost like I think she probably would have come after him anyways, but specifically in this moment because she needs his handprint. And she keeps talking about his hand leading up to this moment. Like, which one am I going to take? And I'm like, is that just like her thing? I guess like you take someone's hand, but we find out it has a reason. And she like drops it down the garbage chute to someone to use, or however that works afterwards. We don't really find out. But yeah, I just thought that was really funny. And then after he's dead, or right as he is, I guess, dying, she slices letters into him and seems to like do this often to her victims. And it is extremely creepy and dark and whatever. But at the same time, I'm like cheering her on because I'm like, yeah, tell that jerk all the things. And then I was like writing the note later and I was like, this is actually really a bad thing to do if you're gonna don't kill people, I guess. But also like, yeah.
It's like specifically this while you're murdering someone, this is the line.
No, just like all murder, I guess, but like, you know.
So my next note here, I thought this was super interesting when it says, Tarek's now bleeding eyes take in the lobe of my ear, the one supposed to be pierced with a transparent bead to signify my ability to hear Claude's ever-changing riotous song. Way I see it, it would only serve to single me out as a threat to the Fade's militant society. So I was thinking, so far it seemed that the beads for hearing Ignos are more common. Like it noted that she saw a lot of those, but not so much of the Claude bead. So I was wondering if that was like a regional thing. Like, is it typical to see more of Ignos in the Fade, or is being able to hear Claude specifically like really like more rare, or like really rare? I feel like her level of power is really rare. But then, I don't know. And having read that, to single her out as a threat to the Fade's militant society, it's almost like there almost could be on the lookout for people with clear beads.
Yeah, I didn't put that together. It does say a
Silence from the rereaders. Very nice. Uh-huh.
I like picked up the book and I was like,
Got him.
We're
I
onto
know you
something.
picked up the book and I was like, is she going to check on the regional thing? Because I was almost tempted to look at the map and be like, does it say it's a regional? I can't really remember.
It does say the one So like her ear, it says supposed to be pierced with a transparent bead to signify my ability to hear Claude's ever-changing ride a song. But I think in chapter 15 it says she should have 2.
Well, yeah, because she can also hear Boulder.
But here in chapter 3, we don't know that yet.
Oh,
We
so
don't
it's
even
like
know she
one
has
for
Claude.
each.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's
I
why
did
like the
not
king is
know that.
tri-beaded. He has 3, and he's
I
surrounded
thought
by
for
a
some
bunch
reason
of
I
dual
thought-
beads.
Okay. For some reason, I thought that the number of beads was relevant to like your level of power or something. I did not put together
No,
leveled up?
just
that you
leveled
can
up. Here's
hear
an extra
3
bead.
of them. I literally, I was so confused by that. I did not put that together. Like I knew they were different
No.
colors, but I kept thinking like, I guess I was thinking when she saw the beads, it was like, oh, they have red beads in their ear. I just was not putting it together.
No, it's like
This is
each
why we
bead
talk
is
about
a
it.
different god.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever.
Okay.
Each
Yeah.
different elemental power they have
That
access
makes
to.
sense. So they could have up to 5, but we only know of like
Right.
2 or 3.
Well, they could have up
1,
to
2, or
4
3.
unless
Up
they
to
have
4.
the ether
Well,
stone.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yes,
Crazy.
and the king
Okay.
has 3.
And it's just if they can even hear it. I don't
Right.
think necessarily they have to be able to use it. It's just like, oh, I can hear this song. And they're like, well, here's your bead.
Here's your bead.
I think it's
Here's
a
your
lot
friendship
more
bracelet.
intense than that from a note I have later, but yes.
The end of this chapter where Rave is wondering about Tarek's son and the other small children that are trapped there. This was another one of those moments where I was like, Miss Parker, this is diabolical. And I am really scared that I already care so deeply for everyone she wants me to care about. I don't even know who these characters are. Most of them don't have names. They're just being mentioned here. And I'm like heartbroken, like absolutely heartbroken over them. It's just making me real nervous for the rest of the book.
It's something small that Rave cares about when she talks about
Yeah.
not caring. So if she cares, then obviously it's important. So I'm going to care. And
True. Great. point.
especially Tarek's own son specifically in that story.
Yeah,
It's really
I
sad.
know.
Yeah. And then I just had a note for the end of the chapter. I just put, this was a freaking chapter. It was so good. So good. Takes us into chapter 4, another Rave POV chapter. And kind of going off of, you mentioned like the ring earlier, but I just wrote the nullifying ring is incredible. I feel like it's such a video game thing. Like the nullifying ring. I don't know. I was just nerding out when she specifically named it as a nullifying ring. But it says, I reach into my pocket and slip on my ring. The racket banging against my eardrum snips off, leaving only the organic sounds of Claude squealing past corners without her manic laughter or slicing song. And then it said iron's nulling properties. And I was like, oh, okay. I thought it was just some special ring. I didn't realize that it was iron, but that would make sense too. Still cool.
Yeah.
Well, and I thought she was super smart. And the fact that she wears her outfit and has the exact same outfit underneath.
Yeah.
When she's like
For real.
being an assassin and kills somebody. And so it's like her outfit got all ruined. And so she just like ripped it off and had the exact same outfit
Yep.
underneath. I was like,
Yep.
oh, so nice. Because then she
Honestly,
just
pretty
like get
Cartoon
away.
moment.
And there's like convenient garbage chutes everywhere apparently. So she could just
Yeah.
throw them down and didn't have to worry about it. So no one saw a thing. It's like
Her tearaway
genius.
dress. Amazing. So I think this might have been the first chapter in chapter 4 where we get to see some artwork in the actual book, which was so cool. So there was like an actual sheet of parchment that's like designed that's in the ebook and the physical copy. So if you've only been doing audio, I would highly recommend at least downloading the ebook or looking through a print copy or something, because there's so much that's in there that's like, it's just so cool. And I would have had no idea if I was just doing audio.
Yeah, it's really beautiful too. And like the handwriting and
Yeah.
everything is so well done. So you have like the flyer on the wall and the dagger later. There's just a bunch of things. So
And it's
highly
like part of
recommend
it's also part of the whisper sync on like Kindle and Audible. So if you have both, it'll still read that part of the audiobook, even though it's on the graphic. So they must have I've just never seen it function like that before. It was really cool.
Yeah.
The chapters themselves have nice art above them too.
Yeah.
True.
What does it read for the dagger? Does just like what it says on the dagger?
I think
Yeah,
that-
but it's not part of the text. It's like it reads the text on the dagger and then keeps going down.
Okay.
Yeah, it's cool. Okay, it's time for me to fangirl now. In Rave's POV, it says, I look up in time for a blow of wind to push back the hood of the mysterious male from the hungry hollow. First of all, I know this was Claude doing the goddess's work in this moment. She was really like, here, Bessie, get a good look at this male. You need to see his face. So here's a moment for the description as well. It starts off that he's harshly chiseled, raw, fiercely beautiful. And then John had some notes.
I wrote, of course he is, shaking my head. And then drugging scent like smelted stone topped with a ladle of cream. Candle watch.
Candle
I
watch.
also had the candle watch.
Candle watch.
And I thought, what the heck is a ladle of cream like, in a candle? If I saw
Atop
that.
smelted
Yeah.
stone.
I was like, okay.
You can continue your description.
Yeah, thank you. I will continue. It says black hair that falls just past his shoulders, half pulled back with a few loose strands, piercing eyes, the rich molten color of fired wood, thick brows, a dark beard that adds a rugged texture to his already robust appearance, a head and a half taller than me, broad chest and shoulders, bold, muscular build. Please do go on, Rave. You have my full attention.
I just put the picture from K-pop Demon Hunters where the boys come around the corner and Moo's like, ugh, her head gets blown back, just blinded by their beauty.
That's me in this moment. Thank you.
And it continues on. It says, he's showcasing as a null, but I know better than to assume he doesn't hear any of the elemental songs, especially given the immense energy rolling off of him, shoving against me. And I wrote, that's not magic, honey.
I just noticed, John, he's got his hair half up, too.
Hey!
Yeah.
Yes, he does.
Oh.
Now the boys care.
Love a con with a half up hairdo, am I right?
That's his kryptonite.
Double whammy.
So I have to note here, he finally says his first on-page words to Rave, and this is after seeing her kill a man, mind you. He says, "Are you okay?" Those are his first words in this book. I love it. It made me laugh. But then Rave does go on about his appearance, and it says, "I lean more pressure into my little iron blade," which is that she's currently holding up against his crotch, "that suddenly feels vastly inadequate against everything it's pressed against." I wrote, astute observation, bestie.
He's got really long balls. Let me paint you a mental picture. You're welcome.
She's going to go back home to Essie and show her the dagger like, it was like this, but bigger.
She's like, say when.
And that takes us into chapter 5, still with Rave here. And her point of view, she says, being an elding blade, I kill. Nothing more. I certainly don't rescue. That task left to others, not so comfortable getting bloody, but part of me almost yearns to this time. And I was like, oh, this is a title, like referencing when she says an elding blade. I thought this was really cool because I think this is mentioned, or she uses this phrase maybe when she's approaching like Tarek, or when they are fighting or whatever. And I thought it was like a little dagger or something. I didn't
I
know.
did too.
So I was like, oh,
Yeah,
this is
like,
what they call like assassins for them. So this was
And
cool.
she's like, if you met another elding blade, they would have taken or done this quickly, but you got me instead.
Yeah, how
or
it was
something.
phrased. I was like,
Yeah.
is it a dagger? But
Yeah, I thought it was like a literal blade until they talked about the elding more.
Well, and like the elding is like the leader of the
Yeah.
Duat. So it's like they are her, whoever they are, their blade
yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. And then she says, sadness is like a stone that stacks inside you, making it harder to move. Ignorance is my self-preservation tonic, and I'll swear by it until I die. I was like, oof, that's relatable, and it hits hard because there's a lot of times I'll just pretend it doesn't happen or ignore it until it just creeps up on you and it gets you. Oof, insightful.
It is. So I was typing my notes as I read this time. Sometimes I take the notes in my phone and then I type them all at the end of the chapter section.
Don't laugh at her,
laughing
Kyle.
at me.
Be nice.
So I had typed this note before I finished the chapter section, and I'll just read it to you. It says, I'm excited to meet Essie. She sounds adorably chaotic just from this parchment, and I'm looking forward to seeing their dynamic together. Now, Kyle, tell the people what you wrote underneath this.
I was going to leave it off the record, but now it can be on it. I just wrote, go.
We both saw this
So
note
rude.
before you had finished.
Yeah, I was like, oh, she's not done.
It's like,
I was not.
Yeah, that's
That
rough.
was not done.
But in this like parchment that she gets from Essie, it's like classic where she's listing all the things. And then of course it's like, and lastly, please go to the Undercity and splat. There's like a blood splatter. It's like, and it's very, very important. It's like, of course. The one important thing.
Classic.
If she had been able to do that thing, Essie wouldn't have had to go.
I know. She
Oh,
would have been fine.
Don't say that.
But for real, that's exactly
wouldn't
it.
have gone to the other city. Let's just move on. I can't talk about this right now.
We'll get there in like 5 chapters. Okay.
I know. So in lieu of chapter 6, we have our first diary entry. This was super interesting. So this says that it is 5,030 phases after Stone. So this is 135 years prior to our current story with Rave. And this was the first moment that I was realizing that the guardian of the stone in this like timeline is female, which I just wasn't expecting because of the wording of the prologue. But I'm guessing these diaries are showing us like the lead up to the first moonfall in over 5 million phases. And I was assuming it would have something to do with Elwyn's mother, but now after reading the next couple of diary entries, I'm guessing it's her and Hadeon. So that's it.
Okay, so to go with your note where you're surprised that the women have the Ether Stone, it's in chapter that Rave is talking to Serene and is talking about how she wants to just like go right now and kill the king and whatever, and they're like, whoa, you can't do that. Serene says simply killing him without a thorough, well-constructed plan would leave the queen in charge, and Rave says, perfect. I throw my hands in the air, wondering why it was presented as a negative when it's exactly what the kingdom needs. And she says, this is her ancestral land. She should be in charge. So it sounds like the queen's, it was given originally to like a strong Fae warrior, but I guess it doesn't ever say if it's male or female. And then also by this point, the bloodline is like through the queens or whatever.
Yeah, I thought it was specifically worded with like male pronouns in the prologue.
But at least now, currently,
that
when
makes
Rave
sense.
is that it is like the queen's ancestral line.
Nice.
So
go off, Queen.
Yeah, go off, queen, and your Ether Stone.
Oh yeah, it says a mighty Fae warrior known for his strength and wisdom.
Oh, sure.
That he was able to host the Ether Stone. But yeah, okay.
Maybe he
well,
just
that's
had
cool.
a daughter, or somebody somewhere did, and then just kept doing it.
Yeah,
They just kept
doing it.
That's how family lines are made.
I meant the daughter part, but sure. Chapter 7.
All right, back to Rave, POV. About to walk into the curly quill, not wanting to stand out for being overly dressed. It says, I grabbed the tail of my veil, rearranging it so it's draped across my bust, hiding all my perky pale flesh. And I was like, oh man. And I put in the picture of that goofy looking kid with like the SpongeBob shirt. It's like he's at the
like a school
a
photo.
family portrait or school photo or something. He's going
Just real
got that, like-
disappointed.
real disappointed. Yeah.
Why am I even here? It's funny.
The curly quill, though, is this cute little shop, and this makes me believe I would be a Rooney in this world. It's got like stacks of parchment and quills and etching sticks and colorful leather-bound books. Put me in, coach. I want to be a Rooney.
And more art for it in the book, the little sign above it. I did audio both times.
Yeah.
Very, very slowly the first time. And I can't believe I missed out on this stuff. There's so much art. We keep saying it, but there's a lot.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's like the actual sign. I love it. Well, we go into the shop, and Ruse is the shop owner, and she has pink glasses and orange hair. So Ruse gets bonus points for being very on brand with BPNF.
Yeah.
You go, girl.
Shout out Ruse. We also learn about like their money system here, which is like the bloodstones, and Ruse like pulls out this like leather book, and it says the inky scrawl stating my well of wealth bleeds off the page like watery ink blown off a slippery surface before new digits appear in their place. So it's like as she's spending money, it's like magically shifting on this book. And then is it like, is that all the books ever? Like if she went into a different store, it's there too? Like that's impressive. And I was also really confused by the bloodstone because it's like dragon blood or whatever. And I'm like, how do they just like carry that around? Or, like,
Yeah.
that I guess it's just magically in these books. All right.
So that it's a go off John's earlier point. Feels pretty video gamey that you could just go into a shop and be like, bloop, bloop, here's my money.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah.
I assumed it was more because that's like where Serene was, And that was how she got paid, like through the Fjorduath. So I figured that was more of like her bank, I guess. Like they kept her money there specifically. And then maybe she does exchange money when she goes other places. But maybe it is like every place has a ledger like that. And they're all
I don't know.
synced up. I don't know.
Synced up. It is about blood. So they're probably all in the same cycle.
The same
You know
Aurora
what?
cycle.
She needed his handprint to unlock something. So already I'm like, okay, well, so there's some sort of like faux technology going on where I assume she's not handing a handprint to someone and they're like, yeah, that's his. Like there's
I would think that's a rune too, probably.
Yeah.
More than technology.
Yeah.
But
No, I was just saying like faux technology because it gives that sort of tech vibe, a handprint to unlock stuff, or like, reading a book and seeing your money update and stuff.
There's Face ID at the place next door.
Yeah. Well, it's like that, the people always say, there was one person who said, and they were right, that like any significantly advanced technology to someone who does not understand it would be magic.
Yeah.
sure, the people.
Weird.
This is probably actually magic, though, to be fair.
Yep.
In this fantasy book, maybe. I guess.
And then if you didn't love Rave already, how could you not when she like gives all her extra money to the poor and sick and hungry? And she says she does it as like a quiet FU to those that think they can like placate her by plying her with payments and approving her passion missions, being the Fjorduath. But she said it feels like I'm winning, even though I'm not. But she tries at least to do the right thing or help the people.
This is all very Manon of her.
Honestly, yes. Same energy.
That's probably why I like her so much.
You were super attracted to Manon too. So
Me or Kyle? I mean, you're
Yeah.
all
correct,
four.
but
all of us.
If you're not, you're wrong, so I don't even want to hear about it.
Manon is a character from the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas, just in case anyone listening has not read it yet. That's what we spent our first 8 months on as a podcast, and we had a lot of fun with those episodes. So those are all there. Whenever you're finished with this series and you're like, what do I do now while I wait for the next book? You can read Throne of Glass. So at the end of chapter 7, in Rave's POV, it says, my mind tunnels back to the moments following Tarek's disposal, to the quiet allure I experienced toward a heavily accented male I probably should have slaughtered, but I didn't because he smelled good. And I said, this is both fair and reasonable, Your Honor. Proceed.
Your Honor. Amazing.
Right into chapter 8. We're still in Rave's POV, and the muscle in Sareem's jaw pops. Cheers. Oh no, I'm out. Hold on.
There hasn't even been that many jaw popping moments.
I was going to say, that was quick. I think we've had one so far.
Yeah, I think there's only 2 in this whole chapter section. Unless you count later when the other literally clenches people's jaws.
Well, we haven't gotten there yet.
Spoilers.
Great. Now I know something else happens.
In the section I was supposed to read this week.
All right. I have another little clarification note for myself because this took me a second. So John also explained this a little bit, but on Sareem's vial, Rave's blood is inside the vial, likely alongside others, I'm assuming, with a specific rune keyed to her blood that Sareem can use to control Rave. So it sounds similar to like being enthralled to me. Like, John, what did you call it? You said it was like a blood binding, or you called it something like that in your recap.
Yeah, they call it blood bind, which I assume because they don't describe this, but I did read this in the glossary. Like bound is like basically marriage or whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it sounds like this one could be just, if there's a blood bind, it's just a form of magic that, you use blood to bind yourself to another person or something. It's not necessarily the marriage aspect or whatever to it. That's just what I assumed anyway.
Well, especially in the way Sareem uses it.
Yeah,
Like
tell me about
maybe
it.
some do that in like a full
Yeah.
I trust you kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But
Oh.
Sareem definitely uses it in a like evil hold this over you kind of a thing.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So the end of my note said, and I hope Rave does get to destroy it. Slay your enemies, girl.
She's definitely in like she doesn't want to be with them, but she also doesn't want to be the crown. It's like a lesser of two evils situation for her.
Yeah.
Where she's like with the Fjorduath. Only because they're at least trying a little bit. It's just not what she wants or whatever. But
Yeah.
Enter Rek Zaros on the scene.
Boo. Boo.
He has been hired by the crown to come and put a pin in the rebellion, is what Sareem says.
Yeah. I put the little gif of that guy from the movie Bolt. who's always telling the little girl, "We'll just put a pin in this conversation. Just put a pin in that."
That was such a deep reference. I know the girls have seen
I knew
that
it
movie
immediately,
recently,
though.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I would not have come to mind.
Any Bolt fans out there?
But we learn more about Rec, and it says that every time she being Rave, has seen him, that she's seen the bounty hunter, the metal spurs on the backs of his boots have been caked in blood, and said don't need a grand imagination to work out who the blood belongs to, likely the poor moon plume he apparently charmed after slaughtering its former rider, if the rumors are true. So even if he wasn't already the worst, he treats his dragon bad, and so now
terrible.
he's extra the worst.
Yeah.
Boo, Rexaros. Then we get this like really interesting moment with Serene and Rave where basically Rave is like trying to get out of there, and Serene's like, your strong affinity with Claude, your skill with the blade, and that savage side I glimpsed before you collapsed in the Undercity the first time we met makes you an essential tool that we cannot do without. And then Rave like feels like as an icy rumble builds in my chest. I curse the day she fell upon me. Seeing that side of me, I barely understand myself. Not that I remember that part of our meeting. Tucked beyond a veil of ice, I was all too happy to ball up and wither beneath. So it seems that Serene has seen this like other side of Rave. And like on the first read, you're like reading through this and you're like, what the heck does any of this mean? And then we get to other chapter and now we're like, maybe it means this, I guess. And so, Rave says that Serene later told her that she had looked at her through black glittery eyes, face splashed in blood, canines bared, and that she knew that she was broken beyond repair, in desperate need of an avenue to channel my rage. And then that's when like Serene seems to have coerced her basically into giving her blood for this like little vial of stuff that Serene holds over her and stuff. But kind of wild that Serene knows about it. That's just all of it. It's just crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have this in my thoughts and theories later. We will be spiraling about it shortly.
Can't wait.
This is another one of those moments, though, like at the end of this chapter, I had initially written, like, I love these descriptions of Rave's inner mind being like an immense frozen lake where she buries certain emotions and memories. Not that I love that she has to do that to survive, but the writing and imagery is like so good because it feels very metaphorical, but then also I feel like it's not now. So we will get there as well. But that's why I feel like the writing is really just, it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, but it also feels very like masterfully written. And I've been
it's like
fangirling
every
about
tiny
all of it.
little thing
Yes.
feels so little, but then is like the biggest, most important thing probably.
Yeah.
So well done.
So this takes us to our next diary entry. And in Elowen's POV, this is also a very unserious note. I was listening to the audio here and it says, Hadeon leaves early next cycle to try and steal his own moon plume egg. He has to slay there and spend many slumbers in snow huts on the way, even though it is dangerous. And slay is spelled S-L-E-I-G-H, but in audio, I just heard he has to slay there.
Slay.
Even though it's dangerous. Hadeon has to slay there. He's got to pick out a really stunning outfit.
Hey, that's too dangerous. You're slaying too hard.
He's really got to serve.
My note for this diary entry was also unserious. I just said I'd love to get my hands on a butterberry chew, which is what she says she's eating and sneaking, getting more of. They sound both fun to say and eat. It sort of tickles the same part of my brain that Turkish delight once tickled before I was betrayed by that treat, because it wasn't that great. So I hope butterberries are A, real, and B, better. But when I Google them, all that comes up is dog treats and that weird 90s peanut butter jelly in the same jar. So I kind of doubt it.
The goober?
The goober.
The goober spread?
Goober spread. Yeah. I'll take it upon myself. I'll make a butterberry chew and then I'll eat it. I'll get back to you.
Yeah. Make
That
a video.
sounds great.
Share the recipe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do that.
It'll have butter and berries. That's the recipe.
Sounds great.
Perfect.
And 90s spread.
Just remake goober. There you go.
All right, so chapter 10, we are back with Rave, and I have a little note on gets me every time. I have a little note on this, like God's Watch / Dragon Watch. I guess this is more of a question. It says Dragon Flame does not abide by the rules of nature. Ignos's language can't deter it from blistering skin, melting flesh and bone, destroying cities. Only a Dagamork can wield Dragon Flame, one so bonded with their dragon that they can harness its strength and fire, though the connection is more myth than reality. So this is where I put, sure. Can't wait for Rave to do this. But then also, does this mean that dragons are more powerful than the gods? Because the gods like created them, right? Like the dragons were their creation. They're called the creators, I guess. But this makes it feel like the gods they don't have any control over dragon fire.
They were surprised when they floated in the air, so
I guess that's true.
And came crashing down. Yeah, like the whole bit.
Yeah.
I don't know anything.
All right. Well,
we were talking earlier about how they find out how everyone has these like elemental powers and how they get their bead or whatever. And I was saying it sounds a little more serious than just like, here you go. And we get this like one paragraph kind of about it here in this moment where we hear like the dragons coming down and they're having basically like feeding time. And she was saying that it's going to be others like her caught masquerading as gnolls. Says they're folk who would speak out against the king or parents of gifted children who try to keep their young from being forced through the painful screening process required of every offspring, from being shaved, pierced, ripped from their homes in exchange for the crown's prescription bucket of bloodstone, gratitude for their great contribution to the Fade's swelling militia. So it sounds like every kid kind of has to go through this process, unless obviously parents are trying to hide them and stuff, and that they are not treated very nicely. And for whatever reason, the Fade has this militia going on. So it's less than just like, here's your bead at school or something.
yeah.
Well, I'm wondering too if I'm assuming they like hear the songs at like different times in their lives. It's not like there's a age or something, maybe. I don't know. Well, maybe there is. I don't know. We don't really get that information. But my next note here, this is Rave speaking. It says, I swallow the rage boiling up my throat, certain there's enough anger inside me to incinerate this city in a single blow of breath. And when I read this, I was like, okay, so I'm assuming Rave is a low-key, dominatingly powerful elemental, especially when we find out that she's kind of like hiding that she is like an elemental and that she has Claude. So, and then as they're talking about the king and his bodyguards and stuff, says only a fool would believe I could get close enough to kill him without a fierce amount of backup. The tri-beaded male constantly guarded by dual-beaded elementals and his vicious dragon. And I was like, ooh, yes, I smell a battle in her future. And then same paragraph, just a little bit later here, making my anger useless, at least until the Elding decides to stop clipping leaves off his malignant tree and start hacking at its roots. And I just thought this was such a coincidence coming from Quicksilver, that whole moment, just in case somebody hasn't read that yet. But
yeah.
And this is what we referenced earlier, Con, with talking about tri-bead and dual-beaded elementals.
Well, yeah. I mean, I knew that. I just didn't realize that that's what it meant.
Got it.
I knew they had different numbers of beads. That was all.
I was gonna say I don't know, because obviously the kingdom is doing all this awful stuff to children. I would wonder if any part of the royalty or nobility is like, oh yeah, I hear it.
right.
I'll get and like, how do you prove that someone can or cannot? I'd be interested to know what that screening process is like, and if, like John said, if you start hearing it later in life, what are you supposed to do? Like, just go say, yeah, I hear it now. Here's what it sounds like, or something like that.
Well, it sounds like it's not like a pleasant thing all the time. With how she's talking about Claude and everything. So maybe they
could just tell you.
I don't know. Even Elowin talked about that, or not Elowin, Kisari, the other.
Oh yeah.
In chapter 13
Princess
or whatever, when she was talking about her being young and like crying all the time as a baby and all the things until they put the iron necklace on her. So maybe the kids just start freaking out and like screaming or are in pain or who knows what. And then they're like, oh, it's high pitched. It must be Claude. Oh, it's this. It must be, or whatever.
And I'm wondering too, like, do they have to just teach themselves to learn the songs? It seems like
that's what it sounds like.
There's not like a school or something like this is how you can learn, Ignos's language. It seems like they're just kind of like
no Duolingo for that, I guess.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so that's super interesting as well. Another note from me, from Rave's point of view, she says, I like the cold, and I can't keep a plant alive to save myself. And I went, babe, sounds familiar.
Both true.
Mostly, I wrote that mostly because of the plant thing, because you always say, like,
I really
be
can't.
able to keep a plant alive to save yourself.
It's kind of embarrassing, but I also do like the cold.
Yeah,
That's very
true. That's true.
Yeah.
And then my last note here for this chapter, when she's talking about the moon, she says, but for whatever reason, I can't imagine not being able to open my eyes each aurora rise, look out past the ever-vibrant clouds in this part of the world, and see that little wonky moon with the malformed wing. And I was like, so that's definitely the one that's going to come crashing down then. Because before we talked, after we finished it, I was thinking that our starting the story with Rave was going to be building up at some point in the book to the moon falling, like kind of how it said at the end of the prologue. I was assuming like they said a moon fell, and now we're going to like a point in the recent future where like shortly after these events the moon's going to fall. But now after we talked it, there might be another like scenario, but possibly. So we'll see.
Good theory.
So when I read this part about Rave like admiring the little wonky moon plume, it initially made me think it would be really sweet if these dragons were somehow like brought back to life and she gets to bond with this little guy and wield its dragon fire and stuff. But now this is kind of what Jon and I were talking about. I'm betting this is the tie-in with our diary entry chapters, because this little moon is called Hae's Perch, Hae, and Eloin's brother, who's about to go try and steal a dragon egg, is named Hadeon, which is also spelled Hae. And Ellie knew the whole story and Rave didn't want to hear it, so I didn't get to hear it. But I'm wondering if that is the tie-in now with like the diary entries being on a different timeline. And then I don't know exactly how that's going to happen, but that's my guess for right now. So since we have silence from the gallery, I'm going to go into chapter 11. And my first note is just that this is an iconic use of magic for Rave and Essie. Did I call her Ellie? I called her Ellie a minute ago, didn't I? My bad. My first note in chapter 11 is that this is an iconic use of magic for Rave and Essie to set up runes around their house to make intruders feel the urge to shit themselves or think they're being chased by a molten maw. I love that so much. It's
Effective.
giving very like kids clubhouse kind of like stay
100%.
out.
Especially with
I
like her
loved it.
room being in like a trap door or something.
Yes.
Like, absolutely that.
I remember being a kid and making people crap themselves when they came into my secret area. Just like a kid.
But if you could have, Kyle, you would have done it. If you had runes to make a man shit himself, you absolutely would have put it outside your clubhouse. Don't even try to
X-Lax in their hot chocolate. My first note for this section was when Essie offered some buttermint loaf with bogsberry preserve. And I was like, well, that also sounds great. And then I also wrote, I haven't had bread in a while, and I think maybe anything in this book that's food is going to be very attractive to me.
I just wrote here, the bogsberry tastes like bogsberry.
This reminded me, this is like a deeper quote than the Bolt one, but if you've ever seen Mystery Science Theater 3000,
Oh, yeah.
there was one where they kept going, and Smucker's strawberry preserves.
Schmuckers. With a name like Schmucker. Oh, man.
That's what that reminded me
That
of.
was a deep cut.
That was
appreciate
deep.
it, though. I used to watch it all the time with my dad.
I've never seen it until I got married to Kyle.
She watched about 10 minutes, and I was like, "What?" She was like, "What is this?" I quit. And I was like, okay, I'll wait till we're further into the relationship to try again. And now that it's been brought up and reminded, it will
Thanks
be
a lot.
I also put that this world's fixident being made from the feces of an animal is just pretty great. Like, I love all of the detail, the world building, and that being a part of it. And she had the whole, like, rundown about why she needed that, because little bits of ore and stuff. It was good.
Yeah, at first I was like, oh my gosh, Spangle Poo, like from Eloin's diary entries. There's like a cross, a little tie-in. And then the whole exchange was just, that was hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
I love all of it.
The amount of times the words spangle poo, spangle shit, or spangle shat is used just in this chapter section is wild. And even Kizari uses the word shat whenever she's talking about like somebody shat in your mug or something with whatever the ale tasted like. And it's just like, I mean, we're so poetic with words, but that one's going to come up twice. Sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That made me laugh every time.
There's only so many words for poo.
I think this is when Rave is considering leaving or like not laying low like Sareem kind of told her to, but she says, the only upside to being indispensable, I'm almost certain Sareem won't fatally maim me for the transgression. Just rough me up until she feels like she's got control again. The usual stuff. And I said, unless she's in cahoots with the king or Wreck or somebody.
Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. As soon as we met her, I was a little bit suspicious of Sareem, so gonna keep an eye on her. My next note is her and Essie are talking, and Essie's starting to get a little emotional about how much she needs her or whatever, and it says, when the stretch of silence grows too loud, I spin, looking into her big tear-filled eyes. Shit. And all I could picture in this moment is like an anime style teary eyes. Like, I've clearly been watching too much K-pop Demon Hunters, but I just put a gif in here I found in anime of like the tears welling in the eyes of the like really
That's exactly
super
what it would
anime
look
style. Yep.
Yes.
And like the little lip quiver.
Yeah, yep, exactly.
No
Yeah.
such thing as too much K-pop Demon Hunters, though. I mean, come on.
I mean, yeah, that's
True.
Good point. Good point.
We literally finished it right before this recording.
Nice.
Amazing.
But yes, going with that, Essie says, like, Rave, I can't lose you. And Rave, like, immediately shuts it down. Like, we do not do this, Essie. We work just fine the way we are. Don't break something that's not broken. And she's like, but you're the only family I have. I was like, ugh, this is gearing us up for the biggest heartbreak of our lives. And yeah, and then Rave goes into her room and is staring at her little moon and says, like, loving this moon feels safe. Moonfalls are so rare, it'll likely always be there, accepting my quiet adoration. Loving Essie, ... It makes me feel like I'm handling something fragile that'll break apart in my hands if I tighten my grip even the slightest bit. I don't know. She's going through it and she totally loves her, but she won't say it. And then freaking chapter 14 happens and it's just all really sad.
And obviously this moon is also not safe. There's no way.
Obviously.
And when she gets out she's got the little like box or something in her little hidden compartment, and she pulls it out. And I was like, I'm so confused. Is this a pet parchment lark? Which I was so disappointed because I like skimmed it because I got so excited and she said it was like flying around. I thought this was like a baby dragon or something. And I was like, oh my God, did she go steal like one of the eggs and she's got a baby dragon? But it was a freaking parchment lark. I'm like,
Piece of paper.
wow, that is a staggering decline in expectations there.
It's so cute.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Cute piece of paper.
My note here, though, was that it's so cute, and I am genuinely concerned
you.
with the level of attachment I feel to a piece of paper. Freaking Sarah A. Parker.
But I somehow felt the same when once you got the like connection between the two, it was just like, why am I getting emotional? This is just stupid message flying around.
Yes.
I know.
It's just a screamer, you know what I mean?
Kinda.
Kind
A
Basically.
howler.
whatever the hell it's called. A screamer.
That's when it's really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just love that the name is Knee. Because when it's folded up, it's part of the I need you part. And it's just so freaking cute that it's its little name. In a way, it like snuggles her on the neck. And
Oh.
it's just
I
so
do feel like
Me
that
are the
would be
larks
like
who say
wildly.
"Nee."
We found a way to work it in. I do feel like that would be super uncomfortable. Like if a folded up piece of paper was trying to like snuggle your neck, that's probably not as cute as it sounds. But
But a 5-year-old piece of paper.
oh, that's true. It's probably
That-
pretty soft.
Yeah, and that she's like opened and folded however many times and stuff.
Constantly crashing into walls.
It's cute.
Okay, we have our last diary entry for now, right? Is this the final one?
Yes.
Yes, because then we get our other POVs. Oh God! So our
Other
last diary.
POVs.
Dun, dun, dun.
So the last diary entry for this section is the LON POV again, and my only note was just, I think this whole thing was really short, but she says, I came to get my own moon plume egg, and I was like, interesting development. Elowen. I'm sure
she, like,
nothing could
sneaks
go
in the
wrong.
sleigh.
Yeah. She's off to slay now.
Yeah, she is.
Okay, so chapter 13, we get our first Con POV, which I'm very excited about. However, I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions about this chapter, and this is my time to shine, apparently, because I'm the only one who had questions about this chapter. So I know that nobody can give me any answers about these things. So I'm just going to fire them off. We're just going to do some like a lightning round through chapter 13, and you're just going to get everything that I was thinking in my little downward spiral here. So first of all, in Con's POV, it says he's thinking about Rave, and he thinks, I know it wasn't her, that it's impossible, that I'm going mad and have been for phases. And I said, wait, what the F does this mean? Does it mean it wasn't her causing this like feeling in his chest that he was describing right before this? Or it wasn't her, meaning it's impossible that Rave is whoever he thinks she is? Like he's confusing her with someone else, or he thinks that she's someone else, which I have some thoughts on later. And then in the same train of thought, he thinks still those eyes, that scent, that voice. And at first I was like, this feels like a mates thing. But I have some other thoughts about this now again.
Mates.
So then Princess Kazari, he's talking to her now. She's wearing the diadem with the ether stone. So this is when I was like, okay, so it's passed down to each queen's daughter. It sounded like, though, that Kazari has been wearing it since the moment she was born. So I'm wondering why Elowen's not wearing it. Because in Elowen's diary entries, her mom is the one wearing it, and she's 9 phases. So I don't know if like they had some kind of diadem on her when she was a baby and then they placed the ether stone on her later, or if it is literally passed off at birth. But then Kazari says, I'm devoted to the creators now. I took the oath of chastity. So then I'm like, does she take an oath of chastity for a specific amount of time before she has to bear the crown until she has a child, and then the child bears the crown? I need a lot more information than what I was giving here. But she also says, I can do whatever I want now that Pa's no longer afraid of me. And I don't know what this means either, but is it because she has her own dragon now? Because we just learned that. Or because she's devoted to the gods now, whatever that means. So like, do the gods vow to keep the guardian alive as long as they are bearing the ether stone? Because we know that they bless them with like extra power in order to do that. But then I would imagine they would be more concerned with the well-being of whoever the guardian is until they have someone to like pass it on to. So there's that. We're still going strong. In Con's POV, it says, beyond the curtain to where a lone fiddle player is carving a tune in the common area. And I wrote, Tamlin? What are you doing here?
I get the reference now. I get it.
Kyle finally read Akatar. Good job, Kyle.
I had to throw that in here just for that. But I have more actual questions. So what is the unveiling ceremony, and why are the skies extra busy because of it? Got zero information about that either. Kazari says, who shat in your stew? And I am adding that to my phrase library immediately. Love that. Kazari also says, Pa says only folk with weak hearts complain. So instead, I wrote my tutor hate sonnets I'd send fluttering into the fire. Now every time I write something with my perfectly linked script, I want to punch him in the throat. But because she's specifically talking about this and her perfectly linked script and just like writing things that she felt like she couldn't say, I want to know if she's the one who wrote the parchment lark to Rave, because Rave seems to think it doesn't belong to her. But I feel like it obviously does. She tried to send it away and it kept coming back. So I don't know if they know each other or if this was just like something that maybe she sent off in a moment of desperation because she maybe didn't know that it was Rave specifically that she needed. But that's my sort of floating half theory for now. In Con's POV, it says, I'd like to cut off her pa's head too, though I don't say that. So I need some tea on why Con would like to cut off his own brother's head, aka the king's head. And then he also says, Queen owes me a favor. And I wrote, why? What favor? All of my notes are in like all caps for this whole chapter. Then I'm shocked that the princess can hear Kalis. There's a quick note from Con about her, like the princess's childhood trauma. It says, the echo of trauma from her start in this world, a world I've grown to hate. Need a lot more information about that. And then Kazari says, she began threading those words together, shaping Kalis's language in my mind, learning ... too much. So it sounds like we talked about a little bit earlier, she is literally learning his language just by listening to him, which is absolutely insane. Then she says, because I want to help set him free. And I wrote, oh shit. Then she says, and because I have fallen in love with him. And I wrote, oh my God, what? John, were you freaking out about this too? You didn't have any notes here, but I was losing my mind.
I felt like it was just like so random. I don't know, man. Well, I mean, I was freaking out because obviously she's either the first, like one of the very few to be hearing Kalis, right?
Yeah.
And like how, how? I guess she can only hear him through like the ether stone, I would assume.
Yeah.
But like how they described it in the prologue is I guess he still has a song, but didn't it say that he couldn't really be heard or something like that? I don't remember at this point now, but
I mean,
maybe it was the
Elowen's
way that
mom is clearly going through it too in that very first diary entry.
yeah. Yeah.
And so assume that she's wearing the diadem or whatever, and so it would be that she can also hear. I don't know that she would have said she fell in love with him, but I would assume
Right.
it's whoever has the ether stone.
I feel like they're obviously like reacting in different ways, though. Maybe Kazari is able to understand him like more than the mom did.
I think it was because she tried to.
Maybe.
Because she had the same reaction at first. She said like the first time that she heard it, it was just like wailing, weeping sounds, and it was like agonizing. And so she just put the iron on or whatever and ignored it for 80 phases
that's
or
right.
something.
Yeah.
So, which means that
Interesting, yeah.
Did I have that? I don't remember if I left that note in here, but that means that Kazari's over 100 phases old because I forget the math was in there somewhere, but that she had ignored it for like 80 phases. And then she like made a conscious decision to listen and like actively listen and try to figure out like what the words were and what he was saying. So she really spent the time like trying to understand, and maybe nobody's ever done that before.
Yeah. But is he just swindling her to get out? That's the question.
I mean, he might be, yeah. That very well could be. There's a little Con tidbit here toward the end of the chapter in his POV. It says, I know too well how malignant the roots of love can be. I've suffered from the same ailment for over an eon, which is 100 phases, and I'll continue suffering until the day I die. And I just wrote, T, please. That's a lot. My last note for chapter 13. Thank you for hanging in here with me. Con asks Kazari what she knows, and she won't answer because she just said she learned too much. So I'm wondering if everything we learn in the prologue is common knowledge, because a lot of that seems like it is, but maybe she's getting like Kalis's full side of the story, or like John said, maybe he's embellishing a lot to try and convince her to release him. But honestly, it's also really sad because Kalis was always like so lonely, and he just wanted to be seen by someone. He just wanted to be included or like seen by literally anyone or paid attention to. And now he finally has someone who's like no wonder he's probably in love with her because nobody's ever paid that much attention to him before.
Well, and like he literally was the first god, and then was like, let me bring in all my friends to like make this world. And then they were like, we're going to trap you forever. Poor guy.
It's so sad. But maybe he's the worst. I don't know. Maybe he deserves it. I guess we'll find out. Okay, so that brings us to chapter 14. We're back in Rave's POV. Rave wakes up from a dream here that is described as melting flesh from my bones in slow sizzling sweeps. So that made me think back to this little random nugget about her encounter with Ignos and how he I forget the way they worded it now, something about his fire though, and she didn't want to deal with that again. So I don't know if that's something she's having dreams about. And then I just loved the on-page calming technique sort of that she was trying to use to tell her body that she's okay. It says, I focus on my fingertips, then my hands, my arms, moving all the way through my body, slowly loosening each muscle, convincing myself there's nothing here that wants to hurt me. I love when there's little on-page things like that in books where they're just using something that actively helps calm them down, that I feel like is also super helpful in real life when you don't have magic. But obviously something is there that wants to hurt her, and it's freaking Zaros. So she goes upstairs, and the moment that Rave sees Essie's bloody hands over her abdomen, I wrote all caps, no, don't do this to me already. And my next note was when in Rave's POV it says, I crush our bodies together, holding her so tight I picture my strength binding her like a bandage. And I am on the freaking cry counter in episode 1 of When the Moon Hatched.
It hits so hard, and Essie's been in one chapter.
Yeah.
Insane. But Essie's like, one of her last requests is, please don't drop me down to the cold or put me in the ground. Feed me to the fire where I'll never be cold again. And so like when she leaves, she does set the whole place on fire. And Rave finally says, I love you to her. And that's when I got the cry counter for me, even on the reread. So I am also on the cry counter for episode 1.
At least I'm not alone. Except the next part when Rave is like, they're having kind of their last exchange here, and Rave was like, why didn't you get a flesh thread, Essie? Why didn't you? And Essie cuts her off and says, because I knew you would always wonder if I didn't make it out, that you would think I left you like they left me. And then Rave thinks they ... her family. And I was like, oh my God, this is brutal. I believe this is not my second cry counter yet, but this was very close, and I was still like actively sobbing here. This was rough. And this was like a long on-page death too, for it being as early as it is.
John.
Yes. Speaking of that, when it says, I'm not sure how long I hold her bound around her body that's no longer moving, no longer warm. And I wrote, it's odd how affected I am by her death. She had like a page of screen time here. But again, it's like the parchment lark. It's like knee. Like you get such a strong emotional connection with the way it's written, even though it's like literally a page or just a couple interactions. I just think it just speaks well to Sarah's writing, like on this, how like quickly you connect to something like that. And then something like this happens. And even with the parchment lark, like after this happens and she like writes on it and sends it on its way. And then like, that's it for Nee.
And it goes back to like acting sort of robotic, and you're like, oh
yeah,
Nee's gone.
Yeah, just her last thing saying, you're the family I never had, as her lungs emptied with a shuddered exhale and didn't fill them again. And then it's like a chapter break, like,
yep.
And you just have to pause and collect yourself.
Yeah. And
then cry again.
Yeah. I had mentioned in the recap that she like, when she goes to leave, when Rave like goes to leave and she's like out on the ledge, we see her really go through something here. And we see this one time before this, but it talks about how she has this like frozen lake or something in her mind. But in this moment, it says, silver light spears up from beneath while I carve an icy grave to drop the parcels down. A curious luminosity that hunts every step, chasing me back and forth between the shore and that hole, something that would usually frighten me. And I don't know, like I get a sense that this is almost like a literal place in her mind and not so metaphorical. Like it reminds me so much of the male main character in the Sword of Truth series, which I've talked about on this podcast before, but they call it in that book to partition. So he can partition his mind or like part of himself and lock it away. And it's like a form of very powerful magic in that book that he uses to basically survive like a really long, drawn out torture that's meant to bind him to his like torturer. But he locks part of himself away. And then after a while, he like recalls that part of himself and he's able to come out of that time of torture, basically. And I'm almost getting like a sense of that here. It seems like it's a very real place and not just a, metaphorical place in her mind, just how it's described. So yeah. I'm kind of hoping that turns into something and it isn't just kind of, I mean, it's beautifully worded either way, but I'm hoping it's more than just like a very beautifully worded description and a way for her to like deal with the trauma kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it is. I have some notes for you later.
Sweet.
Well, this is my second cry on the cry counter. In Rave's POV, it says, I rise back to myself, raising my hand to brush Essie's hair back from her too pale face. And then she said, you sleep. And she kisses her temple and just like lingers there for a minute. And that got me. And I wrote, I'm crying again. What the fuck? I'm like literally sobbing, laying in bed and like, 100 pages into this book? Not even.
Yeah, I know you texted me like all caps. I am sobbing. John's sleeping next to me and I'm over here crying.
I was trying not to wake him up.
My goodness. But as she is leaving Essie and right before she sets the whole place on fire and stuff, she says, I'm going to find whoever did this to you. I pledge against her cold skin. I'm going to find them, Essie, and I'm going to make them hurt. I was like, oh, freaking, it's about to happen. Like, it's going down.
Make it Rave.
But for real. But yes, and then Jon kind of said this earlier about knee, where she, like, Rave folds it up, and, like, I guess there's a specific seal on them that, like, sends them back, and she's never actually, like, activated it before or whatever. But on the wording, I need you, she scrawls in her own handwriting, no, you don't, and then sends it back to wherever it goes. So that's also, like, art in the book, and you can, like, see it and stuff, which is really cool.
It is cool.
And then, yeah, like you said, it kind of, like, goes back to, like, a rigid, all its, like, personality, all its life is gone, and it's gone. So she just, like, literally set her whole world on fire.
Yep.
So, yep.
So as she's leaving, we talked about how she, like, finds, like, Essie's bag and the dagger. And the dagger in the book is so cool, but also it's terrible. And I was so emotionally affected by all of this. And then I had to write a note in here that I was like, assassins who assassinate? Who would have thought?
But, like, Essie's was not an assassination, as much as, like, assassination is still murder. Like, she was just, like, a bystander in this whole thing. Like, that was not his target. He was just being an a-hole.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In that. So.
An assassin hole?
An ass and hole.
But yes, but using her to go after his target and lure her out. It was just like, I mean, I don't know.
So Rave's still going through it. Says something within me shifts, and a booming collision jars me from the inside out, my bones locking from the impact. And there's a couple, like, extra sentences here, but I was like, oh, is her favorite moon gonna come crashing down because of this? Like, it was so descriptive. It was like a perfect descriptor for exactly that thing to happen. So I was like, ooh, are we gonna get that here? Is her emotions somehow gonna, like, call it a Kalis, or, like, you know, that moon or whatever that, you know, is gonna, like, bring it down? But no.
I really did not know what to think of this paragraph at first, but I will be circling back after we talk about chapter 15.
But yeah, right at the end of this chapter, it says, a beautiful, blissful numb, so pure, like a cold silken bandage for my soul, so soft I can almost forget I won't get the glory of killing Rexaros and avenging Essie's death. But as I sink, curled into the frigid comfort, I grow calm. And then it goes into chapter 15.
No. It cuts her off mid-sentence when it goes into chapter 15. First of all, it's talking about what he deserves, and it literally says he deserves in italics and cuts it off and goes into chapter 15.
When it goes, he deserves the other, is how, like, the next one starts. And it's, like, in another sentence, too. So it's, yeah, it's so wild. The other.
The freaking other. So that's chapter 15. And my first note is in all caps. I ended up sending this to Lauren because she said the same thing. But I was like, WTF is happening? I am experiencing whiplash, but to be clear, I am obsessed with this book and not mad about the whiplash.
It really is whiplash, because you're, like, crying and sad and all these horrible things, and then all of a sudden it's like, what the fuck is
what
happening?
is going on?
Wild. I just want to give a quick shout out to the audiobook narrators for this chapter. It is epic.
Yep.
It's not even, like, paragraphs that are switched back and forth or dialogue. It's, like, the same sentences sometimes. And it's, like, just the female narrator gets a word or a couple words and then switches back to the male narrator for a couple words and stuff, and it's just, like, so well done that it makes the chapter even more insanely, like, freaky what the heck is happening when you hear it from, like, thinking that's, like, Rave's POV saying it compared to just, like, the general narration it switches to. It is so insane. And so if you are not an audiobook person, this is your time to get on the audiobook.
Yes. Even
to listen
just
to
for this chapter. It's crazy.
Especially because, I mean, you get it in the book too, but, like, the other is responding to the narration, which is what got me like, whoa, what is going on
It's so
here?
trippy.
So good.
Oh my gosh. This wasn't quite as bad as my chapter 13, but I did definitely have some questions in here about the way that some things were worded.
About what?
So
Pretty
really?
clear.
From this super straightforward, sensible chapter. The first one is in, like, the other POV. It says, but those who kill to hurt the one she loves, the one she nests within, in italics. And my note just said, what?
Yeah. And she's like coming up on the soldiers and stuff. She's like a lot higher up than them on one of the like bridges or whatever. And it says the other decides these Fae deserve the grisly end that's coming for them. Though she regrets not having more time to draw it out, make them weep. And I was like, F yeah, I agree. And then, oh yeah, oh my God. So she like kind of makes her way down toward the first like two soldiers that are chatting or whatever, and she's starting to like throw blades and like attack them and all this stuff. It says the blades slice toward the far side of the bridge into the eyes of two soldiers just beyond the reach of her strangling tune before they have a chance to wield their own words. And I was like, oh my God. Like, and this was just the start of it. This is like when she was just starting, and I like my jaw. I sent a picture to Con. We should post that in the Discord or something. Like, it was incredible. My jaw was dropped this entire chapter.
Yeah, it's a good chapter.
It is.
And it like comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, and once she started reciting Claude, when she started reciting the language for Claude, I was like, oh, I gotta pop in the audiobook because I gotta hear this. And I got literal chills and goosebumps. Like, it is so freaking sweet. Very so well done.
Yeah. Then the POV says, no longer reminiscent of her fiercely beautiful host, now sharp and savage. And I said, what the F does host mean? We got a host we're nesting within. I am losing my mind. Then she says, Vaubanth, I think is how they said that. Yeah. And then the cavern shakes with boulders answer. And I was like, so it's not just Claude that she can speak to.
That's right. She's double beaded, baby.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Well, yeah, and she even says, like, they're the others' POV says, and a fierce, powerful monster who should have two beads hanging from her lobe rather than the null clip to the tip on her ear. And so it, like, confirms that it's not just this weird other something, that it is Rave. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. So she, like, opens up this cavern, whatever, hole in the earth that people are falling into, and then it says blood and brain matter spray from the rumbling sever in the earth as it chews. It chews them up.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah, that's wild.
I'm still so shocked. I'm unwell at this chapter. And then it says, you're the one who killed our Essie, she growls, and I wrote our with like 18 question marks. Oh, and then Rave bites down on Rex's knuckle, and it says his finger pops free, the severed tip dropping into her mouth. And I wrote, oh my God. Like, I can't. Reading this in bed, John's asleep next to me. I was like losing my damn mind. Trying not to like scream over this. This is crazy.
The text message conversation from you from this was top tier. Top tier book bestie reaction.
We should share it because I was texting Con
so good
today too when I was like finishing it and stuff.
Yeah, we'll put them in Discord or maybe make a
pretty
post
solid. Yeah.
So
all
good.
Caps.
Yeah, but with Rec, like he notices like his finger is literally bitten off, at least to a knuckle. How far we don't really know right now, but like crazy. And it says Rec blinks, stark eyes focusing on the gory stub before he tips his head and roars with laughter, abusing the sound until it's bruised and weary. And so I was like, so he's like super insane, right? He's like a completely wild, creepy, I don't even know what kind of guy.
But here's the thing. I literally just thought of this. How do they know, like, what she is? Like, who else knows? Sareem knows. That's what I'm saying. Cahoots. Collusion.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
And Sareem was the one who, like, grounded her.
That's
so
right.
she knew. And Essie was always sending lists to that literal shop that she was in. So she knew that if
Set it all
Rave
up.
wasn't allowed to leave, Essie was going to leave. and
Sareem,
that
the
was gonna trigger
slithery
her.
snake.
Slithery little snake.
Sneaky snake.
Snaky snake.
Slithering in your garden. God gives me a mouth.
Oh my God.
Guys, this is serious. Okay. The last line of this very first chapter section says, a blinding explosion of pain before darkness consumes her. And I wrote, this is a very evil, very brilliant stopping point. I respect it and I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the stopping point we talked about the most of any of them.
Yes.
Because it was like, do we do it right before Essie dies? Do we do it right after that chapter? Do we include the other chapter? Where? And so we just went for the big
big one.
cliffhanger. So
Yeah.
so sorry. Not sorry. So sorry.
I initially wasn't really going to say anything counselory, but since John mentioned it in your recap area about this other, I will go off what we know now at this point, and I added some stuff from what you guys had highlighted earlier because I thought it was interesting. You each highlighted something different that she said about how she controls her emotions. Let me go back and bring this up real quick. So, Lauren, you said that in her head, she said sadness is like stones that stack inside you, making it harder to move. Ignorance is her self-preservation tonic, swears by it till she dies. Connor, you highlighted survival is funny, some wear it like a whisper, others like a scream. Mine is a scorched skeleton of flame-forged rage that keeps me upright. And John, you had commented on her icy lake that she keeps all her emotions in. And I find it very interesting that she uses so many completely different elements to describe how she is keeping back these emotions. And aside from the fact that elements play a powerful part in the story.
Yeah, they do.
Aside from the powerful part elements play, it does give me a feeling of someone who is really trying to control those emotions, but truly doesn't know how to do that. Because she has like these 3 different metaphors that she's trying to work with, like, oh, I'm keeping it all under ice, or like, no, I'm made of fire and I burn it all away from me, or oh, I keep stones stacked up and that's my calm. I'm like, you are all over the place in trying to contain whatever trauma you have, which you definitely have, obviously. But I thought that was just a sort of an interesting look on a possible perspective on this other of a barely contained pain that she has that is hard for her to keep contained, obviously, when it all overloads with Essie.
Good stuff.
True.
Yeah.
Counselor Kyle.
Yeah. But that's it. That's all our reading. So what are your impressions? What characters do you have crushes on?
I thought Quicksilver couldn't be beat. But this has some incredibly descriptive and emotional writing. Like the fight in chapter 15. This is what I live for. Like longer, descriptive, drawn out, just, oh my gosh. I look forward to more fights and battle scenes in similar fashion. Incredibly intrigued by this other, as well as the dragons calcifying as the moons. Love Rave so far. She is clearly underestimated and very powerful. I wouldn't be surprised if we eventually find out that she's also a tri-bead. And maybe, I think it might be maybe cool if like she doesn't necessarily know that she's a tri-bead and we figure that out like with her at some point in the book. I think that would be cool. When they mention the king is a tri-bead with dual dead bodyguards and a dragon, I couldn't help.
Dual bead?
Dual beads? What did I say?
You said dual dead bodyguards.
Whatever.
2 dead bodyguards.
He doesn't need them.
Try and beat that.
When they mentioned the king as a tri-bead with dual bead bodyguards and a dragon, I couldn't help but think of Rufus Shinra and his Dark Star and the Turks. So I'm all in. That's some Final Fantasy VII nerdom right there. So I'm all in on those bad guys. Like the beads are basically materia. So I'm totally nerding out on that right now. Love it.
Yeah, totally. Materia. Absolutely.
Totally, yeah. For sure. It's basically the same.
Yeah.
I am scared. The writing is brilliant and beautiful, and I care so deeply about everyone already. I am mind blown by the writing. I am obsessed with this book. It's haunting me. I can't stop thinking about it. I am already spiraling. I've already cried. I am so nervous, and I can't wait to be absolutely wrecked by the story. I'm really loving Rave as the FMC, and I am so much more intrigued with her after that last chapter. I also clearly need way more information about Con, so I'm going to need some more of those POV chapters immediately. That would be great.
All the descriptions of Con.
Yeah, so not more
Any that she
descriptive
could give us.
information.
Anything about him, really any Con that I can get would be much appreciated.
Any thoughts and theories on what might be to come?
I was just kind of reflecting on some of the things. Like, obviously, Sareem found Rave as the other when they met. Like, that's the, however she describes it, the savage form of her. Clearly seeing how powerful Rave is, which is why she probably did the whole bloodbind thing. I'm kind of hoping that the other has a somewhat different, form. I think that would be super cool. I can't help but picture an underworld, werewolf lichen situation going on. I think
Werewolf, you say?
Yes, that's right. That's right. I thought you'd like that one.
Lauren's been summoned again.
I think Rave's favorite moon is the one that will fall, like I talked about. I have a feeling that she'll eventually befriend Levy, kind of like a "you're hurting, I'm never gonna leave your side" situation. Once Levy kind of gets more into her life, kind of thing. Not really sure about Con. Clearly complicates things when he's the king's brother, but he obviously hates him. So feel like that's gonna work in Rave's favor, obviously at some point. Probably in more ways than one. Am I right? The whole Elowen and Hadion thing, being a diary and the timestamp a bit in the past. I'm assuming they're dead. Womp womp. And I think their parents are dead too. Obviously, I think the king and queen now aren't their parents.
Gotcha.
Excited for more.
Nice. All right. Woo. Con, how about you?
I don't have theories about everything, but I do have really ridiculous theories about one thing. So we're going to talk about that for a minute.
All right.
You've reeled me in.
Sounds like a beginning of a good book.
Yeah. So the last chapter clearly sent me into a downward spiral. I had told Lauren, I was reading it in bed. I told Lauren, I was like, I need to go to sleep. I'm going to have some weird dreams about this book. And then 35 minutes later, I was back with all caps text messages again. So after further examining the text, here's where I have landed. I think that Rave somehow shares her body with a dragon. Not that she obviously didn't turn into a literal dragon here, but I think that's what this alternate POV is in this, the other chapter. Don't ask me how. I have no idea. I'm not quite there yet. But don't. What did I just say? But I think the word host had only been used before this chapter to talk about the ether stone. But this chapter also said nesting within her, which wouldn't make any sense for a god. And we know Kalis is still in the ether stone since the princess can hear him. So I don't think that it makes any sense for this to be a god. So unless this is some other random creature we haven't heard of yet, like John's saying with this werewolf situation, and because of all of this language, I think that it is a dragon. At first, I wasn't sure if Rave was aware of what was happening, but now I do think that she is. I think she has some sort of maybe not shared consciousness, but I think she has some awareness of when it's going to take over or that it did take over, and maybe she gets little snippets. Maybe that's what those flashbacks are, or her dreams are pieces of the dragon's memories because she's not fully present for those moments. So it started with some little things the scent between her and Con. So I don't know if that has anything to do with the dragon situation, but it was very strongly worded. And then with both of them, actually, in both of their POVs. But then the line where it says, "I plunge into the melody in the same way I once plunged into life," that kind of sounds like a whole dragon situation in the prologue, where I think it was a moon plume that was that plummeted back down and had been gifted life or whatever. So I don't know if that can work the opposite way. But it was saying things but with the words I've since learned how to speak, there were certain ways that was phrased where it didn't sound like I was a baby and I grew up. I don't know. I'm still really confused by all of that. But this whole thing with the savage side that Sareem glimpsed before she had collapsed in the Undercity, it said, "I'd looked out at her through black glittery eyes, face splashed in blood, canines bared," whatever. But I think it's the moon plume dragons that are described as having eyes of glitter and ink. And then one of them is also described as inky, and that's the way that they describe Rave's hair. So I don't know if those are related either, if that's just a word that the author likes. But at the end of chapter 14, This is the thing that like really makes me feel like this is what's happening, because rereading this afterward, I was like, oh, she says, I can't do this. I can't fucking do this anymore. Something within me shifts and a booming collision jars me from the inside out. This is part that Jon read. My bones locking from the impact. There's like this shift inside of her. My body temperature plummets so fast I hear my heart slow, like it's wrestling slushy blood through my veins, one sluggish beat at a time. I inhale a shudder of air that feels too warm, like pulling lava into my frosted lungs. It's coming. And then she's kind of battling with it, like part of me wants to fight it, but I love feeling this like blissful numb. And then it says, I almost forget I won't get the glory of killing Rex Zaros and avenging Essie's death. But she's talking about how he deserves it and she's going to kill him right now. But her saying, I know I'm not going to get the glory of killing him, but he deserves this really crazy, gruesome death. These are all things that just make me think, because all the language is like her surrendering to whatever it is. And then it says he deserves, and it cuts off, and then it goes into the other. So that's where I'm at right now. There's another level that I could take this with her being the actual, it's a saber scythe. That's what it is, from the Ballad of the Fallen Moon. The imagery there with like the saber scythe and the moon plume, I think it was a moon plume, is very similar to what happened with Essie just now, like in chapter 14. And then it also sounds very similar to what happened with her and Fallon at some point in the past. So there's a lot of like parallels with it. And then the second book being titled that, I'm like, I could see like a parallel storyline kind of happening. I don't love the whole tragedy side of that, but I also feel like this book is going to wreck me. So there's my kind of red string theory that's happening there. Yeah. So
I love that you even wrote it on its own document. Like
I did, because I had to copy and paste a lot of stuff.
That's what I did for the counselor notes as well.
I didn't even read half of it just now. There's a lot in there.
Whatever helps you organize it all for you for later.
Yep.
I will say my like initial impression for the other was very Venom. That's what I thought of when I was reading for the first time. Like, oh, very symbiote.
Yeah.
Venom.
Yeah, that's true.
Sort of vibes.
Yeah.
I was just like completely lost. I was just WTF the whole entire time. And I went with the whole, like, if I just keep reading, it will make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, except I couldn't do that.
Oh, yeah. Forgot. Well, you can now.
Give us about 5 more minutes so you can...
You get right back to it.
Yeah.
That does take us to the cry counter, which I cannot believe. Episode 1, 2 of us on it. I cried once for Rave, realizing that she should have said, I love you to Essie before it was too late. This is the cry counter. There's no party club music happening.
Sorry, it follows the Rave.
John's still getting it. He's still over there partying.
He's still on beat. He took it and ran with it.
And I cried 2 times in episode freaking 1. Both of them were for Essie and Rave.
And the boys still cried 0.
0.
Womp womp.
Jaw dropped a few times during that reading, but no crying.
Well, that's good. That's still something.
Yeah. But what a rush. Am I right, ladies and gents? Be sure to tune in next week as we try to find out who, what, where, when, and why the hell is happening in this story after such a roller coaster of a start. But next week, we'll be covering 16 to 30. If you aren't with us on our Discord through Patreon, be sure to get in there ASAP so you can freak out in real time with Con and Jon as we guide them through all the lore. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well for more fun and exciting book content, updated podcast schedules, merch drops, and lots more. But as a gentle reminder, don't send any When the Moon Hatched spoilers or memes on social media or email or anything like that. That's Lauren and Con's gig, and they'll see it first. So Lauren can read it, but Con's got to remain in the dark. So better safe than sorry. We do have a specific spoilerific chat in the Discord for each week's episode, though, so feel free to shout in there. Otherwise, kindly wait until we finish the book before sending that content our way.
Yep, and there you have it. The moon has hatched, the world has cracked open, and we are not okay. If your jaw is on the floor and your heart's in a chokehold, we are here with you. Head over to BetweenPagesAndFriends.com. Join us as we scream into the void and our Discord. Share all the theories, prep for more pain, spice, and plot twists that'll leave you and us emotionally unstable in the best way possible. Till then, stay wordy, stay nerdy, don't stress, and stay blessed.
Stay blessed. Bye. I need to go read the next chapter.
That was great.
I'm in distress.